morning, everyone. Why don't we get ready to start here? It's a beautiful day out in this great community of ours. We're going to call the meeting of the Carson City Board of Supervisors to order. Today is Thursday, August 7, 2014. It is just after 8:30 a.m. We're in the Community Center at the Sierra Room at 851 East William Street. Could we have a roll call, please, Alan, for the record?
Supervisor Aboud. Here. Supervisor Bronkowski. Supervisor McKenna. Here. Supervisor Shirk. Here. Mayor Kroll.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Mr.
Thank you
Mayor.
very much. All right. Could we call our good friend Ken Haskins of the First Christian Church to get us started on the right foot? Ken, good morning, Reverend.
Good morning. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful for this beautiful day that you've given to us, the abundant and rich life that we enjoy. In this room, Father, though there are not many people here, there are many different and diverse gifts and talents and abilities. And I just pray, Lord, that you would guide our steps so that we would take what we have and use it to improve the quality of life for others in our community, and especially be with our mayor and supervisors today. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's a beautiful Chamber of Commerce Day. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to item number 5. This is public comment. This is the time the public can comment on any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Board of Supervisors. So, public comment, come on up. Good morning. How are we doing?
Good morning. Sandy Wallen for University of Nevada Cooperative Extension 4-H and Youth Programs. And we want to thank you for backing the fair. We loved it. Everyone we saw, and we had rough estimates right now, and they're rough because we're just beginning to accumulate our numbers, about 200 to 300 a day in our section that we were working, not including livestock. All smiling faces, everyone saying, gee, a family event, this is wonderful. Lots of grandparents with grandchildren, young families with children. Truly a wonderful event, and we do thank you very much for backing it.
Thank you, Sandy. They were a big part of it.
Thank you.
Big part of it.
Thank you.
And you know the governor announced that he's a former 4-H member, too.
Yes, I know.
Right, that was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, I know Ron, so, and his brother Ron, and so
Right.
I knew that the boys were both involved in 4-H early on.
Very good. Well, thank
So
you.
it's a lot of fun. He gave us a big hand. We appreciate that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you. All right. Any other public comment? Terry, good morning.
Good morning, Supervisors, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Terry McNutt, Chairman of the Board for the Carson City Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here today to do the same thing. I would like to congratulate and thank you for allowing us to have a Carson City Fair. It was wonderful. I attended 3 days. Wednesday was a ribbon cutting. Thursday was a concert at the Rodeo Park. It was sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. And also Saturday spent the day at the fair. It was amazing to see how many people were there enjoying themselves. As she alluded to, many families. I think that was really nice. The amount of people was nice. I think what also was amazing to me was that it was a variety of people. There was grandparents with their grandchildren saying what a nice thing to do to be able to have a place to take their kids to that they could all enjoy. Saturday, I noticed a lot of people had brought their lawn chairs and were sitting out watching their kids, watching the concert. So it was just a very nice thing to do. I also was impressed with the organization of it. Thank you very much. It was well organized. It was well received. The cleanliness of it, oh my goodness. What a nice thing to be able to walk through a park and there wasn't any trash. It was just very, very nice. I was told that there was over 100 volunteers. Is that right? Wow, that tells me a lot of people wanted to be involved. So kudos to all the volunteers. Again, kudos to all of you for supporting us and allowing us to have another Carson City Fair, and hopefully you will consider allowing us to have a second Carson City Fair. So
well, thank you,
thank
Terry.
You so much.
And you know, kudos and a big pat on the back to the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce was a big, big part of helping put this on. I mean, it shows what happens when we all collectively get together to do something really good for our community. And I think I speak for all of us here. The chamber, was just a huge part, and we really, from the bottom of our hearts and our community heart, thank you guys for doing what you did, because I know that a lot of chamber members are those volunteers out there picking up at the park, going around making sure that there wasn't a lot of trash around. So
There was.
it's a good, very good.
You said exactly right. It was a community event, and the community all came involved to make it a success. So thank you again very much.
And thanks for this day today. This is a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Yes, it is. We
As she
planned.
said, this is a Chamber of Commerce day out there. Okay. Further public comment. Morning, Renee.
Good morning. Good morning. For the record, Renee Plain. I just wanted to take a moment as a family with small kids. I attended the fair on Friday night with my family, and it was such a wonderful time. My 4.5-year-old enjoyed riding all of the rides. He even rode the Ferris wheel with me, which was pretty surprising. The bus service from Fandango was awesome. They were fast, and the bus drivers were friendly. I saw families getting on with lots of kids, strollers being put under the bus, and it was just clean and friendly and just wonderful. So as a mom with small kids who are going to get bigger, I really would love for this to come back into the community. It was just a wonderful time. So
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Thank you. And your kids for partaking.
Yes.
Having the will and the enthusiasm to jump on the Ferris wheel. That was good.
yeah, it was good. And the baby loved the animals. He
Yeah.
was so excited about the sheep specifically because he was making the sounds that they were making. So yeah,
You'll hear
it was
that for a
just
while.
fun. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, other public comment? I don't see any right now. We're going to be talking to Marina. She's got a little update, and then we'll probably bring this back on the agenda when we get some finalized information to do a little public debrief about what we're doing. So, all right, so let's now take up item number 6, the minutes of April 17th, 24th, and May 1st. We'll do them seriatim. First, the minutes of April 17th. Everybody had a chance to look at those? Motion's in order.
I move to approve the minutes of April 17th, 2014, as presented in the late material that we were given this morning.
I second that.
Motion by Supervisor Binkowski, second by Supervisor Abad on the motion. Discussion?
Yes.
Discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I talked to Alan about the minutes of the meeting posted on the website, and right now, presently, there's only January posted on our city website, and I don't know exactly who was supposed to post it, but I would just like to see the minutes keep up to date. As we approve them here, they should be posted. And also, there should be a link on that minutes of the meeting that would take you to the viewing of that, or I think it's only the vocals of it. There's no telecast of it, is there?
It's audio.
Just audio. There should be a link of how to get to the audio for the full minutes of the meeting as well. So we need to get those up to date if we possibly could. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, maybe John Wilkinson do you have info on that, John, on whether we're going, that link with, is it going to be audio or visual or both, or where do we stand on that one?
John Wilkinson, IT Director. Yeah, we're working on the audio. They've had a backlog over in the clerk recorder's office, as you know, and we're getting a third notebook computer for them, so multiple folks can do meetings, and we're setting it up where all 3 of their computers can create MP3 files. The basic format of the tool they use doesn't create a very good file format for audio, and so we've bought tools for them to all convert that. I don't think we're very far from having all the audio available easily on a website where you can click to it and get to it pretty quickly.
Thanks, John. Okay, further discussion? On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. On minutes of April 24th.
I move to approve the minutes of April 24th, 2014, as presented.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Binkowski, second by Supervisor Abad on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Do May 1st.
I move to approve the minutes of May 1st, 2014, as presented.
Second.
On the motion by Supervisor Binkowski, second by Supervisor Abad. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up adoption of the agenda. Marina, got any changes to this agenda?
None that I'm aware of, Mayor.
Board members, any changes to the agenda? Okay, unless there's an objection, we will take the agenda as published. Okay? Yeah, go.
Before we get into the meeting, could you explain to us where the city manager is?
Oh. The city manager's got one of the, these collateral duties these Marines get into. It doesn't happen in the Navy very often. But he's conducting a passing review for members of his, actually it's a very prestigious thing to do back at, I think it's at Paris Island. He's doing the formal passing review for graduates, so that's a big deal. So he'll be back tomorrow evening. He left yesterday morning. That's a big deal. Okay? That's where the city manager is. All right. Let's see. Anything else on the agenda there? No, okay. Let's go to number 8 then. I know we got a lot on the agenda this morning, and we have an afternoon section. It starts at 1:30. It may go quicker this morning. You know, there's an old adage around that work expands to fill the time allotted. We don't need to comply with that old adage, okay? So let's move with alacrity, efficiency, intelligence, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's take up item number 8, juvenile prevention. Ben Bianchi, come on up and talk to us about the grant that you're getting
Good morning,
for.
Mr. Mayor and
Go.
Supervisors. This grant is money that's been made available to juvenile departments throughout the state, and it was created back when the state dictated to Medicaid. They're no longer responsible, or they're no longer allowed to pay for the room and board expenses of youth placed in therapeutic group homes or specialized foster care. So the state created this grant for us to access that money to subsidize those placements of youth.
Comments from the board? Anybody? Got anything? Public comments? Anybody want to weigh in? Motion's in order. Thank you, Ben. Supervisor Abad.
I move to approve the Carson City Juvenile Probation Department receiving $47,408.21 in state funds from the State Juvenile Justice Programs Office for specialized foster care room and board Medicaid funding.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Benkowski. On the motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, let's take up 9A. This is the Tiburon. Who's doing this one? Good morning.
Nick and Kim are both out with medical issues with their mothers, so.
Oh, boy.
I'm Sherry Russell, for the record, county manager. Trying to fill Kim's shoes while she's gone. So the 2014 Tiburon project is a combination of hardware and software, facilitates computer use, aided dispatch, it manages crime records, and it automates jail management. The total cost of the project is anticipated to be $1.2 million. What we're asking you to approve today is $899,000 for Tiburon products and services. It'll be funded by the new bonds that we received for the 9/11 surcharge fund.
And we also have Stacy and the sheriff around for these things.
And
too,
John
so.
Wilkinson are also here to answer questions. Yes.
So they're here to answer. Okay, so technical questions, I think, go to Stacy or Ken. Come on up, Sheriff. Stacy, why don't you come up too? Tell us what's going on. I know this is coming out of the bonding funding.
Questions, some that we're already aware of, and so I'm going to ask John to go first so that we can put on the record some clarifications.
Sheriff, are you referring to those questions? Or the ones that?
Go ahead.
Okay. I believe the sheriff wanted me to read into the record the questions from Supervisor Bonkowski. There were 3 questions, and these got circulated to all the board. One of them was about Windows upgrades and would that cause us a lot of expense? The answer is no. The software that we're acquiring is going to be free from upgrades caused by Windows or Microsoft for until 2013, when Windows 8 is reached its end of life.
2023?
2023. Thank you, sir. We did not acquire a package that has free upgrades of the Tiburon software itself. Those are very expensive. It would have added to the cost, and the funding wasn't available. If that funding is needed, we're going to have to find it down the road if an upgrade is required. The upgrades that the city has done in the past have been very limited. They've been specific for certain requirements that we had to make it compatible with another piece of software or to make it compatible with Windows 7, which is what we did a few years ago. And the warranty, if you look at the main amendment to the contract, it says there's not a warranty. The warranty is covered in the existing service contract that the city has. There's also an issue with, it says in the amendment that the city has to provide hardware and third-party software. We already have the third-party software. That's what's in use now, and the hardware is budgeted. This is basically an upgrade from an old version of Tiburon to a new version of Tiburon. In IT, we refer to these as forklift upgrades because basically all the old stuff goes out, all the new stuff comes in. The contract includes the amount of the software, it includes training, it includes implementation services, and it includes conversion. And all those things can add up. Conversion for a system like this can be a couple $100,000 by itself. So I don't know if there are any other questions for me.
What happens if we don't do it?
The software we have goes unsupported in 2017. And that means if it breaks, we're not going to get any help. And that means we're dead in the water if it breaks. That seems, I guess, a little far out, but when it takes up to 2 years to implement this, it's getting pretty close to time to move.
Got questions? We'll start down here and come around like this. Supervisor.
I have a document here dated July 9th, and it speaks to the effective date and payment schedule. And item number 5, it says this fixed price proposal is valid through October 7th of 2014. Why is it only valid to that date?
That's their proposal. That means we have to accept it by that date.
Okay, that's all that means.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
John, I wanted to thank you and the sheriff for answering my questions. I also wanted to put on the record why I asked the questions, and the reason for that is just because my personal experience using Windows platforms is that they only have a short window of support, and then they basically force you to upgrade software that maybe you don't need to upgrade so that they can collect more money. And so I just wanted to have a very clear picture of what we're getting into. Are we buying software for almost $900,000 that we're going to have to spend another $200,000 or $300,000 on every 3 or 4 or 5 years to keep it up to date? You've answered my questions very thoroughly, and I thank you for that. And so I just want everybody to be clear that we are not buying something where there are hidden costs going forward unless we need a certain upgrade for Tiburon, not for Windows. And at that point, it would come back to the board so that we could discuss it and decide if it was a critical upgrade or not.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
More comments than questions, but one question is, I have a document here that says firm fixed price, $899,975.
Yes, sir.
Is that the price, or is the $899 that was mentioned earlier the price?
It's the first one, $899,975.
Okay. I would like the city manager to look at all of our software and I know he's doing this already, so computer needs, where we need to go. Then I need to ask the sheriff and the chief, is this what you can live with and get by, or is this what we need to do to take us into basically the future? Are we spending money now to maintain, or are we migrating into a place where we can get a very efficient job done? Is this what you need? And sometime I'd like that answered.
Thank you. For the record, Sheriff Furlong. This does satisfy all of our needs. Certainly, we could spend a whole lot more. Tiburon has an enormous amount of modules that are quite expensive that we have not chosen to jump into. It is extremely high-quality product. We've been in use since 2000. Thanks to Karen Moracek, the division manager, and former Assistant Sheriff Jack Freer. The maintenance of the system has been phenomenal. The support of the vendor has been phenomenal all the way through. It does cover all of our needs and satisfy probably one of the most important in law enforcement, and that's an intelligence database that allows us to act on. This fits all of our needs very efficiently.
I guess with the other thing that is in the back of my mind, is there a way, if we did buy a different product or more product or use modules differently, we could have a lower staff, more efficient response time, that sort of thing? We've been talking about Tiburon for a long time. We haven't replaced it. We probably should have replaced it 3 years ago or so. Is this what you really want?
I'm going to stick my neck out and say this is a AAA product.
My question's more or less on the funding of it. 900,000, or the answer I received before was bond proceeds will cover the 900,000, and 300,000 will be coming from the fund balance. I'm just wondering why the whole bond is not covering the whole thing.
You got a whole team.
I know.
Stacy Giommi, Fire Chief. The funding is coming from the 911 surcharge account, and we wanted to fund some of it from our cash reserves on hand because, frankly, we had been budgeting money through the 911 surcharge master plan that you approve every year to replace that software. So that money had been in that budget yearly going along. And by using $300,000, we got the bond payment to a point where we could afford it with the income from the 911 surcharge account. So had we bonded the additional $300,000, number one, we would have been leaving money in the bank that we had set aside for it and not using it. And number two, we would not have been able to make the bond payments with the funds that are coming in.
Thank you.
One final question, and this is probably going to be for John. The third-party escrow service provider has changed to Iron Mountain. So my question is, was there a specific reason why we changed the service provider, and is the software source code actually being deposited into escrow, and how often?
That provider is chosen by the vendor. We have no problem with Iron Mountain. That is a good outfit, and I've had software escrowed with them before. And by contract, yes, it's got to be there. So the updates. Let me check on that. How they do their updates. I don't know the answer to that. I will get that answer to you. I would like to add one thing to what the sheriff said, or maybe a few things, and that is the SO has been looking at a lot of different packages over the years. As you mentioned, this is something that probably should have been replaced a long time ago. And during that period, they've been looking at other options. And this is considered one of the best. We're getting in on a pretty new version, and sometimes that's dangerous. Tiburon didn't want to let us go to that new version until it had been tested. This very version that we're acquiring was rolled out at the City of Houston in June. And the City of Houston's got 8,000 people that are sworn or civilian within their law enforcement. So it was able to handle that. It passed with flying colors, and they're pretty enthusiastic about this version. But it's not that we're cutting any corners on this. It would be instead we're getting the full package. There's also a matter of when you shop with other vendors, you're not going to get anything this inexpensive. If you go out and start from scratch with a different vendor, they're not going to give you upgrade pricing. They're going to give you pricing that is maybe $1.5 million or $2 million for the same thing that we're getting.
One final comment, John, or maybe just a suggestion. When you find out on the software code, maybe we could set something up so that Iron Mountain sends an acknowledgement receipt when they get a deposit for an upgrade, so that we have documentation in our files, so we know exactly when those deposits are made and that they actually are made. Thank you.
This is the first time anyone's ever asked me about software escrow.
Yeah, because I don't even know what it is. Just a couple of final comments. You know, you saw the number figures estimated on the upgrades that we chose not to pursue since 2000. The group that has maintained this system has just done a phenomenal job of using the product for what it was intended to be used for, and that has allowed the city to bank or save a considerable amount of money. Surely we could have come along with upgrades with each version that they produced, but the philosophy of using the product for its intended purposes, by its intended purposes, without making modifications to it, we have successfully avoided some of the extreme costs that other jurisdictions have had to do. And so I want to commend Karen Marachek and Jack Freer for their insistence for digging their heels in and saying, no, we're not going to do this along the path. So that is a number that you can put out there that they have successfully averted. There is one challenge, and I do want the board to understand this. As this program or process went through, the funding did not allow for the recommended full-time employee to be dedicated to the program. Right now, I do have a person on staff under the umbrella of the Sheriff's Administration, the Charter 6 positions. That person is being paid for by salary savings at this point in time. I do ask for a little bit of latitude in the scope of the year. It is going to balance out with anticipated losses in my administration through retirements and such. For the next 3 months or so, it's going to fluctuate back and forth a little bit. We met with IFC yesterday and went over each of those details, and I promised Marina that I would bring it up to you. By December, we'll be balanced out nice and well.
Thank you, Ken. All right, other comments from the board? Public comment? Anybody, public want to weigh in? Anybody got any comments? I don't see any. Motions in order, and let's get the right number.
Yeah, I do.
899.
I move to approve the amendment, support agreement, and software license agreement with Tiburon for services that will be used by a response agency, therefore not suitable for public bidding pursuant to NRS 332.115, 1. Subsection G and H, for a not-to-exceed cost of $899,975 to be funded from the 2014 Tiburon project account in the 911 surcharge fund.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thanks very much, panel. Okay. All right, let's take up the East-West Water Transmission Main Project.
Alrighty, so the East-West Transmission Main Project, Phase 2A rebid. We had 4 bidders on this. The engineer's estimate was $2,100,000, and staff recommends the award goes to Sierra Nevada Construction as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder at a cost of $2,029,007, with a contingency amount not to exceed $202,993. I'm sorry, $202,993. Darren or Public Works should be here to answer any questions on this project.
Darren, why don't you tell us where the money's coming from? Tell us how the rebid process worked. Was there any game being played on the rebid?
Good morning. Darren Schultz for the record. And I have with me today Tom Grundy, who's the project manager. I also have Rick Cooley here, who will be the construction manager for this project. It's been a long time getting here to this award. As you know, we've been through it one time before. Ultimately, the rebid did not save us any money. But the bids came in nice and tight, and we feel good about where the bid came in, and obviously the 2 low bidders last time who were upset about things have moved on, and we've got a project here. The money for this project is part of our bonding that we have done for our overall water projects, and what we're doing is bringing our water from our east side over to supplement the west side water. And so this is just one more link in that project. The project limits, I'm going to hit some of the questions that came through and put them on the record, and then if you have specifics, we can go there. The project limits, it will basically start right outside the high school on Solomon Street, and will run to the north up to the entrance of Mills Park. And then we'll go through Mills Park and right between this building and the Aquatic Center, The pipeline will come through the parking lot and it'll tie into Roop Street here on the other side. It will impact traffic substantially on Solomon Road. Unfortunately, we'd hoped to do it during the summer when high school wasn't in session, but we got delayed. And so it will affect high school, but we've got a plan to deal with that, but it's going to be a little tricky for a while there. Once we get into the park, it's going to impact how the park is run, but we've been working with the Parks Department, and we have a solution to try and minimize it as the best we can. As we do this project, we're going to be tearing up and replacing several other current infrastructure projects. So the question was asked, for instance, storm drain. How come we're putting in storm drain and it's not being paid for by storm drain? This is not an additive necessarily to the project, but the storm drain we're replacing is what we have to take out to build our pipeline. Same with sidewalks, same with pavement. There's a considerable amount of new pavement that's going to get put in right outside here as part of Mills Park and the Aquatic Center. So when we get done, we will leave it in much better shape than when we found it. So kind of went through the questions that have been asked. We'll open it up for new questions.
Questions? We'll go Supervisor Bonkowski, then Supervisor Shirk.
Darren, did the 2 corrections that the mayor asked for get made in the contract? We didn't get a new one as late material.
No, I'm sorry, we're still working on the whole contract concept with the committee, so.
Okay, yeah, but there were 2 basically typographical errors that need to be
Right,
corrected.
they were just typographical errors.
Okay,
I can
I'm gonna
correct
read
them
it.
before I send them out.
I'm going to read them into the record just so that when
Okay.
we approve the contract, that they'll be part of the record.
Okay.
On page C6, under alternative dispute resolution, on the 6th line down, it says before a judicial, the word action needs to be added after the word judicial. And then on page C7, under indemnification, 2nd paragraph, 2nd line, it should say defense to the indemnified party. So that was it.
Thank you.
You did answer all my questions, thank you much. The only follow-up one I had, which we briefly discussed, if we could have on the agenda item, maybe a map of where these projects will be done for the community as well as ourselves.
Yes, Mr. Shirk brought it to our attention. It'd just be a good idea showing the route, and that we'll start doing that on capital projects as we award them in the future. Give you a little more idea where it's going.
Karen.
Darren, since school will be starting soon, how are you going to orchestrate? You said you've got the traffic pattern handled, but I've been there in that area at that period in time, and it gets very congested. So can you just elaborate a little bit? Are you going to work with the school district on this? How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, when I say handled, that was probably not the right term. We have a plan for traffic control, and the idea, the concept that we have right now is that the west side of Solomon, we will just completely close it for construction, and that will allow 2 lanes on Solomon on the east side, north and southbound. What we're looking at doing as far as traffic to the high school, it will be right in and right out only while we have this traffic control in place. We are working with the school district, so it'll be an effort that we work on together. It'll be well advertised. But I'm not going to promise you it's going to be smooth. There's a lot of traffic at the beginning and at the end of school. But it's just where we're at. But we'll have the best plan in place that we can.
It might help alleviate the issues we got at Smoker's Corner, too. All right. All right. Public comments? Oh, John, I'm sorry. John, Supervisor McKenna.
Just, can you tell us where this project's going to go from basically through the park? You're going to start over on Solomon and then go through the park? Is there a way of delaying doing Solomon? Could you just do the park first while school's starting and then after things settle down, or at the end of the project next summer? How long is this project going to take, that sort of thing?
Well, the project overall, start to finish, is 3 or 4 months, so it's going to happen relatively quickly. The problem with delaying it is we have to, because Solomon work requires all the paving, that we can't delay it too far because then it gets too cold to put down asphalt. So we either do it or we delay it until next spring. The problem is we need the water next spring. So because of the rebid, it really messed up our schedule. But we did consider trying to figure out another.
Just a personal comment, this entrance to this complex down here sometimes gets a little confusing as to who's supposed to go. And can you straighten that street out?
Want to talk about that?
Good morning, Tom Grundy with Carson City Public Works. This project won't change any of that roundabout area around the tree. It doesn't change any of the traffic patterns through the area.
Okay. All right, other comments, questions from the board? Public comment? Anybody? I don't see any. We ready for motion? Supervisor Burkowski, go.
I move to determine that Sierra Nevada Construction is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder pursuant to NRS Chapter 338 and to award contract number 1314-175 titled East-West Water Transmission Main Project PH2A-1-rebid to Sierra Nevada Construction for a base bid amount of $2,029,007 with a contingency amount not to exceed $202,993 for a total contract amount of $2,232,000 to be funded from the capital projects construction accounts in the water fund as provided in the fiscal year 2014-2015 as amended.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Burkowski, a couple of seconds on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. Let's take up Radco. Who's doing that? Come on up.
Alrighty, so this is the Sugarloaf Communication Site project. Again, we had 4 bidders. The engineer's estimate was $280,000. Staff recommendation is to award the contract to Radco Communications, who is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, at a cost of $272,298, with a contingency not to exceed $26,000. Project managers are present to answer questions. This is the one, there will be $50,000 transferred from sewer and water, and we'll have to augment the budget to pay for that portion of it. Currently, there's only about $200,000 in the fleet fund.
Tell us a little bit more. I mean, we got the project guy here. Tell us why we're doing this. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
James Jacklett, Carson City Public Works. This project, Sugarloaf Communication Site, is our primary public safety repeater for the city. Currently, our equipment is housed inside of the American Tower Communication Building, and that facility has proved to be less than reliable to us. Backup power is non-existent at that site, and in the past, recent storms, we've actually had to go up there and run our primary sheriff, fire, local government equipment off of a portable generator like you would have at your house. That's not acceptable for public safety infrastructure for us. So investing in this, our own site, we've been working on this. We had to pursue a lease with BLM in order to get our own footprint on top of the hill. And this is going to take us into that future. This infrastructure is going to support us for the next 50 to 100 years. It's being designed structurally to do that, and with capacity to support the equipment that we'll be putting in as we move into next generation public safety equipment.
Just for the record, can you go over why the funding is from Fleet, Water, and Sewer?
Sure. The funding's from Fleet, Water, and Sewer because the Fleet Fund houses the majority of our radio fund, which is contributed to by multiple departments in the city. All the departments pay a piece and a share of those systems that they use, and that's housed in the Fleet Fund. The Water and Sewer, they're major users for those 2 radio systems, as well as the SCADA and utility automation systems are housed in that site, and the communications at that site are critical to those as well.
Where is Sugarloaf?
Sugarloaf is directly north of Carson City. If you're on Carson Street and you look north, straight up the street, you'll see a tower up there. It's a 100-foot tower. That's the American Tower site. Ours will be directly west of that. It'll be an 80-foot tower.
So this is Duck Hill to the right?
Yeah, Duck Hill is actually to the west. We started referring to it as Sugarloaf since that's the actual hill that we're on. Duck Hill is directly to the west of it.
Does the city also have a facility up on Snow Valley Peak?
We do. However, that system is sheriff, fire, and local government radio frequencies, but they don't have the voter system tied into them. That's a backup system for us that allows us to get coverage, especially to the eastern portion of the county. What's significant about Sugarloaf is it's a voted radio system, which means when the sheriff and fire responders are on their handheld radios and they're in a neighborhood and they talk on that radio, that gets to dispatch. Without that voted system, it's basically remote receivers that are distributed throughout the city. Without that, those guys may not be able to call for help.
So it's not a duplicate facility, or if it is duplicate, it's backup, emergency backup type thing?
Yes, Snow Valley was put into place in order to enhance our coverage of the lake, of the up at Lake Tahoe, those different areas over the hill, and then the eastern portion of the county. The coverage from Snow Valley is not very good for the west side of Carson City. It's shadowed by the mountain, the west and south part.
Is there any opportunities to partner with another county to put in a regional type system, or get them to pay part of the cost as well?
Yeah, we actually partnered with NDOT on this site, and we have an interlocal agreement. They're going to go in there with us. They've provided money, as well as they're providing the building that's being placed at this site, the generator, and some of that other equipment. And for that, they're going to have rack space. It's going to provide them a place to put some equipment for their radio system, as well as coverage for the wind warning systems in Washoe Valley. They have coverage limitations over there that they would like to be in the site with us for. And the site has capacity for future buildings so that we can grow the public safety capability of this location.
And just as a curiosity, since we're maintaining this, I assume, how do we get up there when there's a bunch of snow on the ground?
Helicopter.
Yeah, I understand. My question was, why was the water and sewer contributing? And I understand that now, but why isn't the fire and sheriffs?
They are contributing through that fleet fund. That fleet fund, the fleet fund houses the radio system money, that two-way radio system money. So when you see that, that is contributed by all the different departments. So every department pays in the share of that system, and that's the money we're using.
Does that also include parks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Other board comments? Anybody? Public comment? Anything? Don't see any. Motion's in order. Who wants to? Supervisor Abel.
I move to determine that Radco Communication LLC is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder pursuant to NRS Chapter 338 to award contract number 1314-184 titled Sugarloaf Communication Site Rebid to Radco Communication LLC for a base bid amount of $272,298 with a contingency amount not to exceed $26,000 for a total contract amount of $298,298 to be funded from the capital projects construction accounts in the Fleet Fund as provided in the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget, and a budget augmentation from working capital of the sewer and water funds.
Motion by Supervisor Abel, second by Supervisor Benkowski on a motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. Let's take up the next item. That is the release of final payment for the Fairground Shelter Project to Horizon Construction.
Yep, so the Fairgrounds Area Picnic Shelter Project is now complete. Staff recommends release of the final payment, $4,333.88 to Horizon Construction. The engineer's estimate was $102,362, and the total project costs are coming to $86,676.03.
Say that again, please, the last,
The total project cost?
the engineer's cost? What would you say?
The engineer's estimate was $102,362. The total project cost, $86,676, about $16,000 savings.
Okay. Questions, anybody? Public comment, Jim?
I asked earlier, I sent the email about the frost-free hydrant, correct? Is that a standard within the city, or is it just this particular location that gets it?
It's a standard within the city. It's just as we get really cold, we want to make sure that none of the, any of the appurtenances around a fire hydrant freeze,
So on the original bids, when we put these out, this should be a standard
Right.
that
That's
we
correct.
should have had it, we
That's
just
correct.
kind of overlooked it,
Yep.
correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment, anybody? Don't see any. Board, we ready? Brad?
I move to accept the work as completed to accept the contract summary as presented, and to approve the release of final payment in the amount of $4,333.88 for contract number 1314-155 titled Fairgrounds Arena Picnic Shelter Project to Horizon Construction, Inc.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Bienkowski, second by Supervisor Abel on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. Let's take up the next contract. This is the joinder contract for the Caterpillar 550, backup generation power for the Quill Surface Treatment Plant. Okay, go.
I think Quill is item F, right? Item E is the excavator.
Where am I then?
Yeah.
Item E. E, right. I got it, okay.
Okay. So we're purchasing one Caterpillar 3055E CR compact excavator to replace existing equipment which no longer can be repaired economically. The contract was bid and awarded through the joinder process with the National Joint Powers Alliance. Staff recommends we utilize the joinder contract for the purchase of the Caterpillar compact excavator through Cashman Equipment for $96,489. The Sewer and Water Fund will be paying for this, and it was budgeted in 14 and 15.
Hey, Darren. I have my usual questions, which are the piece of equipment being replaced, how old is it? What was the estimated economic useful life? And what is happening to that piece of equipment? Is it being salvaged, or is it, what's going on with it?
I'll back up and give a quick general overview just on equipment, because I want to make sure that we're all understand what's coming forward since we're starting a new fiscal year. Public Works as well as other departments will be coming forward with to get approval for to buy new equipment that was budgeted in this fiscal year. This is round one for Public Works, and there will be several more coming in the next 6 months or so. We budget ahead of time. This year, we currently have about $1 million budgeted for new equipment, and then we go forward and find jointer contracts for the specific piece of equipment and the needs that we have that'll give us the best bang for our buck. This particular piece of equipment, a mini excavator, what we're doing is going through our fleet, and as things get old, and what we state here is just uneconomical to repair and to maintain. The idea behind that is we are putting more money into that piece of equipment than every year to maintain it, to keep it on the road, then it's the cost analysis of moving forward. We need to replace it. What we do is, if it's too bad off, like this particular equipment, it will go to auction, and we'll see how much money we get for it. The goal is to try and replace these pieces of equipment a little bit earlier, to where they still have some more salvage value to them, and we can either take them to auction and get money back, or a higher amount of money back, or in a lot of cases, they get passed on to other departments, specifically general fund departments, where there's still use there and it gets passed on there. What we're doing here is replacing a backhoe, an outdated backhoe, and that piece of equipment will be going to auction. We'll see how much we get for it.
How old is the backhoe?
Our fleet manager is here today, so he'll answer that.
Good morning. Zach Good, Public Works Fleet Supervisor. That particular backhoe is a 1995. It has 5,000 hours on it. And we've just had a lot of issues with that piece of equipment, and it's getting very expensive. We're starting to have hydraulic failure in that, so it's best to move that machine on to auction and replace it.
The warranty on the replacement equipment it averages out to about a little over 19 hours a week. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, because most of our backhoes average anywhere between 8 to 16 hours a week of work.
Okay, thank you.
Darren, this is, we had the fleet study, and where does this fit in? They ask that we get rid of some equipment as part of that audit committee fleet study. Is this one of those things they wanted us to get rid of, or can we?
Yes.
Do we need this, basically?
Well, yeah. The fleet, one of the suggestions of the fleet audit was to try and combine your equipment between departments so you could use less of it, more of a pool type of situation. We're continuing to look into that, but we're struggling with it right now because our initial thought is when competing departments need the piece of equipment, you need it. You need it when you need it. You can't often wait. And it's special events, storms, disasters, that sort of thing. We're all trying to grab it at the same time. It's not there. Well, then go rent it. Anyway, we're looking into that recommendation. We have not necessarily bought off on it, but I will eventually be able to come back to you with a more formal response to that. This particular piece of equipment, no, it's not going to be necessarily shared with other departments, although as they get needs and it's available, we share all the time.
I guess from a management point of view, should we stop buying stuff until we decide we're going to reject the fleet study or to implement the fleet study? Or can we, I don't want to get sandbagged. I don't want to buy a bunch of stuff and then, oh yeah, we don't need it, but we've got it for another 5 years because we bought a whole bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, one of the primary recommendations of the fleet study was to replace equipment faster, not hold on to it so long because we're losing the value. So, I mean, that's one side of the fleet study that said, get rid of your junk and get newer stuff and then get rid of it sooner. The other side of the fleet study is look at ways to combine. So I don't feel like we're doing something moving forward that's going to catch us later. This stuff is just too old. We couldn't share it if we wanted to. So, good question, but I don't think it's conflicting.
Actually, mine was along the same line as John. If we can make this a more of a structured progress of getting the equipment we need all in one shot rather than piecemealing it separately as we go along. So that was my same comment.
Okay. We're I had some discussions with Supervisor Bonkowski. We're in the process of with our new software at Fleet and our new fleet manager of putting together a comprehensive capital plan for Fleet citywide and trying to look at the next 20 years. We haven't been doing that in the past. And then we're going to be coming forward, and ultimately it's going to be a funding issue. I mean, it's going to come down to that. Is if we want to do what the fleet study, utilization study said for us to do, we need to spend this much per year on buying new equipment, new vehicles, the sheriff and fire. I mean, so more coming. I'm sure you can't wait.
Does it ever come down to anything but money?
It's our motto over there. It's all about money.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Brad.
Darren, just to follow up on what Jim just mentioned, when it comes to maintenance of the equipment and of the fleet vehicles, right now I know we struggle with maintenance issues and repair issues, but again, going back to the fleet study, it appears that we can generate some cost savings and we can kind of get the maintenance under control as we buy new equipment. We can put it into the programming, the new software, and actually track better and maintain better, which should generate cost savings and extend the useful life of the equipment. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, for instance, this piece of equipment coming in, it'll go into the software. I mean, obviously we're maintaining our equipment now, but it's going to tell us exactly at this, you're spending this much every week or every month to maintain this equipment. You're using it for this amount of hours. Get rid of it in 2021. Sell it then. That's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck and get a new one. That's what it's going to tell us. So, you're onto it.
This probably is off the wall, and it gets into how you run business, but could we just go rent this when we needed it? Go down to United and rent one every time we needed it?
That's one of the things that Fleet, when we did the study, looked into is possible rental of some of this equipment. But it's you only do that when it's your use of it is casual enough, not as often to where it economically it pays for that. So there are some cases where we do that, and there are some cases where the Fleet study said we could do that more. This is not that case. When you look at the amount of hours that we're going to use it per week, it's cost prohibitive to go and do that. Furthermore, when you need this, there's times where we're going to use it for the whole week or a full 2 weeks at one shot. We go down and rent that same piece of equipment by the hour or by the week for 2 weeks. We're gonna pay the year lease on it.
Public comment? Anybody? Good morning.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, Supervisors. Lisa Huggett for the record. I'd like to commend Supervisor Bonkowski for bringing that issue up about the years and the hours on the equipment. Coming from the heavy highway construction industry, 5,000 hours on a 1995 excavator is just breaking in the excavator. And I think it's a grandiose waste of taxpayer money to consider trading it in or giving it away to a different department if there's still maintenance issues causing his department to want to donate it to another department. The maintenance cost issues would still be there, just pushed off on another department to have to pay, and I think that's irresponsible. I've been around pieces of equipment for 30 years that are still running. You still have parts available for it. The companies are still maintaining that piece of equipment. And if a major construction company can use a piece of equipment during heavy summer construction for 10, 12 hours a day, all through construction, I wouldn't think a 5,000-hour piece of equipment needs to be kicked to the curb. As far as leasing equipment, you can lease heavy construction equipment for a very economical rate that includes maintenance if our city forces or whoever we contract with can't provide those services in an economical value. And I would ask that we reevaluate the Moss Adams study or the Fleet study, whatever we're calling it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make good, common, economical sense. I think Supervisor Bonkowski, hit the nail on the head that the maintenance issues don't make sense for our equipment. And if we're going to start buying equipment to give it away every 5 years or every 5,000 hours, that's not a good deal. That's not a good return on our investment. And I would, John McKenna's on to something about leasing it, maybe not on a per day, but when agencies lease vehicles, the maintenance cost is built in, the trade-in value is built in, but I don't think that we should be purchasing new equipment after 5,000 hours, that your car's just breaking in, so is the piece of equipment. They're built to be used. They're built to be used stuff. And if we got a bum piece of equipment, then we should have turned it back in under warranty and got a new one. And I think $1.4 million is a big waste of money. Thank you.
Brad?
Darren, one point of clarification. You did say that this piece of equipment is not going to another department, it's going to auction, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Darren, I want to just clarify one issue. This piece of equipment has had several maintenance issues that make it very expensive to repair.
That's right.
So it's just not cost effective.
Yeah, there's standards out there. It's been years and years, and there's standards out there for equipment and the amount of hours and that you put into it. And then it gets to a point where you look at the amount of cost that's going into maintaining it, and you weigh that against what you're looking into the future, and you got to make the decision. You cut and run because it's not economical to just keep putting money into it. So that's what we're doing.
It's about return on investment.
That's right.
Okay. Other public comment? Motion's in order.
I move to authorize Public Works to utilize joinder contract number 060311, CAT, a contract approved by National Joint Powers Alliance for the purchase of a Caterpillar 305.5E CR compact excavator through Cashman Equipment, which is exempt from competitive bidding pursuant to NRS 332.115 subsection 1M and NRS 332.195, providing Carson City's approved funding and purchasing procedures are followed. File number 1415-036.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Bankowski on the motion. Discussion? Question or discussion?
Discussion. I guess just a reiteration. The fleet study said we're supposed to do things this way. We have conflicting opinions about whether or not this piece of equipment should be replaced. You've seen it. You work with it. I accept your judgment. That's where we pay you the big bucks and have you run the department. But I'd like to get to the point where we're following that fleet study or have modified it so that it fits Carson City. Any idea when that's going to happen?
We adopted the fleet study about 2 months ago and got direction from you to go forth and implement it. So we're in that stage of implementation right now. The fleet study gave us a number of recommendations. I forget how many, I think 21 or 22. And with each one of those recommendations, we either responded with, we'll do it, or we responded with, we need to research this further because we don't necessarily agree. Most of them, we're going to do it. So now we've directed staff in that division to go forth and implement this, and we'll be coming back to you. And I estimate it would be about a 12-month period. We'll come back to you. Really, probably 30% of those recommendations had to do with the fleet, the software that is used to manage fleet. And we didn't have that, and now we have it. But it takes us some time to enter all that data in, all the equipment citywide, and build this database, and then that software is what's going to give us these recommendations and generate a report moving forward as far as capital needs. So we just need a little bit of time to get that up and rolling before we can come back with reports as to what it means and what it tells us and how it ties to the fleet study. So the fleet study is, we are working towards that today, and we will continue to do so. I can't give you a report on all of those recommendations and what they mean and if they've saved any money until we run them for a while. I'm estimating a year.
Okay, so basically, we're in a transition period and we're doing things the old way, and we'll have the fleet study available as soon as we can get the data, et cetera, and we can start managing based upon that way of doing it in a year or so.
No, we are not managing things the old way. We are managing things the new way. I just can't report what that new way means economically or what it's done or changes we've seen until we get some data, some history, some time under our belt. But for instance, buying this piece of equipment at this, or getting rid of the old one and buying the new one, that is exactly what the fleet study told us to do. So.
Okay, further discussion? On discussion among us here at the board, the fleet study is done by Moss Adams. Moss Adams is just not any outside vendor. Moss Adams is our internal auditor for this board, and I know that it's coming up on the audit committee where they're going to be looking at tracking audit committee recommendations, and so that'll be at the next audit committee meeting, and we'll see what comes out of that. All right. On the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Let's take up the next one then. F. Contract 1415-037. Caterpillar.
Yeah, all right, this is the purchase of, this is a quill surface. This is item F. So the purchase of a generator off a new nationally competitive bid contract with the National Joint Powers Alliance for the quill surface water treatment plant. The plant is currently unable to operate in the event of a power failure. The plant is the primary source of water for the western side of Carson City. Staff recommends that we utilize a joiner contract with Caterpillar for the purchase of the Caterpillar diesel generator for not to exceed $141,192. And this again is in the 14-15 budget.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'm going to have James here. He's our expert in this. Come up and explain some of the technical background. But basically, we had a failure up here last year, and the idea of having a generator on site that can't run the treatment plant in its totality just proved a real weakness to us. And so we want to get something up there that can do that, and that's where we're moving forward here. So I'll open it up to technical questions or other questions.
And could either one of you just go over, we have a generator up there now, but it's not adequate. What's going to happen to that generator once we install the new one if we approve that? Then can you break down the scope of work into what portion of it the city's doing and what portion is part of this contract? And then just a question, if you have do you have the agenda item in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, if you go to page 3 of 4, at the bottom under project clarifications, deviations, and exceptions, number 3. Number 3 is not filled in. Is that because this is a diesel generator, not a gas generator?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So then I just have the other 2 items.
Okay, sure. So the surface water treatment plant up at Quill, it was installed with a 100 kilowatt generator, which is insufficient to run the operation. The purpose of that is to provide backup power to the slurry mixing tanks. We use diatomaceous earth up there. It's mixed with water, and it's like very gritty, like sand, and it's suspended in that water. If those tanks stop mixing, it settles, and it becomes like cement or concrete and has to be shoveled out. So that's the purpose of the generator on site, is to keep that slurry suspended and liquefied so that when you do get power back, you can reinitiate the process. The operations over the past have been to mobilize one of our portable generators up there, manually transfer the site over, which only allows us to run a portion of the plant. It doesn't allow us to move water up into the ash tanks or the ash zone. It also has the limitations of response time, and it ties up one of our generators. We have a limitation of portable generators right now. Across the board of Public Works, we're trying to look at what we have in order to meet the process. That's something that hasn't been done in the past. So when you look at running all of our water and wastewater systems in an emergency, in a catastrophic regional type failure, if the power is out, we're not able to complete our mission. So that's why we've funded this emergency generator line item, so we can begin to correct those deficiencies and get this going. So this 550 kilowatt generator will have an automatic transfer switch. It will transfer automatically, as well as upon the power coming back up, it'll return back to utility power and operate correctly. That plant, something you have to know about the way it operates, it takes a while to get online and to take it offline. Because of the filter media that's utilized, you can be in recirc and not producing water for up to 12, 24 hours before you can bring those sets back online. So when it goes down due to a power drop or due to anything else, any interruption, that you have that time that you're not producing water. As far as your second question on the staging of the construction for this, we are purchasing the equipment now off this so that we can get the best price possible through this contract. We can get equipment that's consistent with our existing inventory of generators that our guys are used to working on, that they're familiar with. And then we are going to come in and do some site prep and civil work with our own forces, internal Public Works workforce. And the electrical installation will be contracted out, and the reason for that is because of the amount of time, the amount of cabling. That's something that, given our current workload, it's better for us to have somebody come in and help us with that.
So you're suggesting that it's a good idea for us to be proactive and do catastrophic planning?
Yes.
Oh, what a thought.
Thanks.
I assume this is in response to the power failure and the Ash Canyon tank almost draining and the fire department having almost to put water trucks up there in Lakeview and that area of the world last year or so?
From my standpoint, this isn't from one specific circumstance. This is across the board looking at producing water for the city when we need to. This is something that we need. We need to be able to do that. And the surface treatment plant's reliable. It's our cheapest source of water. It's also critical to that west side infrastructure. So it's the first one we wanted to deal with. It's the first one we wanted to get up and operational.
Okay, so what you're alluding to then, this is a management plan to start disaster planning or to implement this type of disaster planning. It's a change in how we're doing business?
Yes, we're improving or increasing our operational readiness as well as our redundancy in our system, our reliability, all of that. So we're making things a lot better. Something like this isn't something that you don't see that improvement on a day-to-day basis. You see it when it counts, when it matters.
Yeah, when the power fails, it doesn't come back up right away. My real question is, I ask it almost every time, where are we at, since this is a remote-controlled item, where are we at on protection? Can, pardon the phrase, the Israelis come in and hack the thing and cut off our water supply?
No, this generator is a standby generator. It's monitoring the utility. It will have limited connections for monitoring and control to the SCADA system, but that's protected under the protection that's in that SCADA system. And I can tell you that with the investment that the city has made in keeping me and my team in-house, we are doing very well in that respect for our industry, for our size. So I have a lot of confidence in that arena.
Okay, so no sextant virus or anything like that can be...
There is no such thing as never. I mean, you can never say never, that the world isn't that way, but I wouldn't worry about it. This generator there is going to increase our operational readiness and reliability. In no way is it going to open us up to more exposure. If anything, it's going to do the opposite and give us and set us up better in any of those circumstances. If somebody was to come in and commit some act like that towards us or towards our country, we'd be better off having this.
That's what I want to hear.
Is there any salvage value to the old generator? What are you going to do with that?
The existing 100 kilowatt generator is, the brand, the manufacturer, it's no longer supported. We had to repair that recently in order to keep that operational, and we actually had to have a different company do it with no warranty because it's not supported. Our existing plans under this it can be abandoned in place. There is no real salvage value with it. If anything, we'll leave it there for redundancy as a backup to a backup, unless we see some reason not to do that. As I mentioned, with that slurry, if those tanks solidify, it really is a bad thing. These are sizable tanks. To get guys down in there with shovels, it's not a good day.
A few years, probably many years ago, when I was on the school board, the city bought generators for emergency response. One was over at the high school. They were for emergency response. Do we have spare generators running around, or where are we at with emergency generators? I'll put it that way.
Sure. We have 6 portable generators, and that's for Carson City. They're maintained by Public Works, but that's Carson City, General Fund, everybody, Sheriff, Fire, to back us up under portable power, as well as the school district. The school district does not maintain any of those. So when you think about the number of assets, critical assets that we have and the things that we would need to power in a catastrophic type failure, we don't have enough to do the job. And when you think about the other alternatives of renting or getting those, you're not looking at having those, at least in the initial operating period, if something was to go wrong. So along with that, our largest portable generator is a 320 kilowatt unit. We have several sites that need a generator that size. So now you're down to a choosing process. So when something does happen, do you put it at the high school to run lights and a shelter? Do you put it at a well to make water? Or do you put it at wastewater in order to try to process that? And those are the decisions that we face if something like that does happen. in that sense, we need a 550 kilowatt unit in order to operate this plant. We don't even have a portable that size. We considered getting a portable to do that job, but identified Quill Treatment Plant as a site that really needs its own dedicated generator. It needs to be there all the time so that is a reliable source of water for us under all circumstances.
Is that just for the west side, or will that also enable the east side to have, suppose the power for the entire city went out? What would happen to water?
Sure, so that zone up there, that pressure zone is higher. It's up higher than the east side, so water can be fed from that zone over to the east side. So Quill water can be moved anywhere in the city.
So this generator basically is citywide. It's not just a west side drinking water. Could you, if there were a problem on the west side, and power were out, could water be moved from the east side over there?
Not currently. The east-west transmission main will change that. However, we need not just the phase that you awarded today, but we need the next phase in order to do that, to move it uphill. In that case, we're moving water from down low up high, so we need pumps to do it. There is no other means to move water up to that side.
And then where does the wastewater treatment plant come into this? Does it matter? Because I guess it can store water for a few days.
So with the current designs, with the current plans that are happening at the treatment plant, they will have their own dedicated standby generators in order to handle what they need to do. And those will be new ones that are larger than what's currently there. That's going to have its own separate needs in order to do that. In an operational scenario, if something was to happen, you'd have to consider everything. But we can't go wrong by identifying key sites that can make water, large producers, one that are efficient, that don't require necessarily as much power to per gallon in order to produce it, and then to invest in those to make sure that they are ready standby, meaning they don't require a response by our employees, by our forces, in order to keep making water. We want some of these things to fail over automatically and continue to operate.
Well, I want to say that I know you weren't prepared for this. I get paranoid when we start talking about emergencies, but I will say that you handle my questions incredibly well, and I feel very comfortable that you're in charge.
Thanks.
I would second that. My question is, what should we expect for the economic lifespan of a typical generator? So if we buy a generator, do we expect it to last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
I'd say closer to 20 years. Some of the things that are actually beginning to impact the industry when it comes to generators are emissions. So emissions implications in the EPA, they can hamper our ability to run equipment longer than needed. And that's something that we'll see in the future with some of our aging generators.
But once in place, then it's grandfathered in, so we don't see EPA requirements come along that require us to upgrade existing generators.
But no, actually, they're working on that with their quality. Of course, they don't want you to dirty up the air. So that will be something that we'll have to face in the future with some of these other ones. But 20 years is a good, reasonable expectation for this generator.
I move to approve contract number 1415-037, joinder contract with Caterpillar through the National Joint Powers Alliance for the purchase of a Caterpillar 550 kW diesel generator for a not-to-exceed amount of $141,192 to be funded from the Water and Emergency Generator Program accounts in the respective funds as provided for in fiscal year 2014-2015.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor Abel on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried, unanimous. Okay. Let's go on to number G. This is the Badger meter issue. Go.
Yes, due to training and compatibility issues with Badger Meter, we're asking that, or we recommend that it be a sole source provider. And staff recommends that you approve PO 8075, a request to purchase domestic water meters from Badger Meter, Inc. for not to exceed an amount of $165,000. And this is budgeted in the water fund for 1415.
Brad?
Sorry about the Public Works show today.
Good morning, Darren. Can you just go through with us the questions that I asked you, which basically are, if we're purchasing a proprietary system, what assurances do we have that additional equipment that we have to purchase, because it is proprietary, are competitive on the open market?
Yes, very good question. This goes back maybe about 15 years ago, and we did, well, a little bit of background. Every service has a water meter, and then it also has on top of the meter, a device that allows us to drive down the street, and we pull the information off of that device into our vehicle to compute how much water everybody uses. So about 15 years ago, we went out and looked at everything that was available for this type of a service and operation, and we ultimately chose Badger as providing that for us. We've continued to use Badger for the last 15 years. It is true, once you invest in one particular vendor, you can't go out and use a different vendor for parts or to start substituting, because they're proprietary. They don't work together. It's one or the other. It's not both. It's not competition. So over the last 15 years, though, we have continued to look at it every year as we do, and we compare Badger to other vendors out there, what they can offer, as well as cost. And we found no reason to change the direction that we're currently going. Badger is well aware of the investment it takes in their product, and so they're always trying to get new customers, but they know that they have to keep the ones they have happy, or they're going to lose out on a sizable contract. So we're very comfortable moving forward, continuing to move forward with Badger, but we don't. The idea of switching vendors would be a substantial amount of capital, but ultimately, if that makes sense long-term, we would consider that, and we would come and talk to you about it. Right now, we feel like we're good to go with Badger, and we're not wasting any money.
Is there any way to eliminate the drive-by reader?
The next step up is to install a network, shall we say, here in the city. Little antennas on light posts, that sort of thing around the city, and then that signal would go from the meter to the antenna and into our computer system. So that's the next step up. We're keeping an eye on that. Right now it's financially not feasible, but that is continuing to come down in price, and it's becoming more and more practical, and people are going to it. So that would be our next step.
With every time we open up the ground, we put in fiber optic. Is there some way we could create a system where we use that fiber optic for our meter readers?
The fiber optic, I believe, could be used once we get to the point of installing antennas and trying, maybe perhaps tying it into there. But the idea of running, fiber or a cable to every meter and then go into our system, that's a ways down the road.
Just dreaming, and I don't know if it has any economic benefit, but if we were to install a fiber to each meter, that would mean we pass each house. That means that we could have a fiber optic electronic communication utility that we could rent out to someone who wanted to provide future services to our residents. And we could get some internet up to Lakeview.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a goal. I mean, that we could look into the future is if we're doing this for the meters, yeah, you obviously could put other, fiber for other services in there and make a lot of residents happy, certainly. It would be a big undertaking right now financially, but we'll keep it on our radar. And like you just heard from James, we got we got the bright ones out there, so they'll keep track of that.
Jim?
I did talk to Nick, financial director, about the purchase order and the dollar amounts and how we're purchasing this. And some of this will be purchased in 2015, so that's why there was one piece of paper left off the agenda late item. But that being said, I do want to, if I may, just interject something off the agenda item. I just want to say thank you for Public Works' speedy response to the numerous situations we had at the last heavy rainfall, and how you guys responded, how well you reacted, and you just did it phenomenally well. And I heard from a lot of residents that they were grateful that you were there and you took care of the things you did in such a timely manner. So I just want to pass that along to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shirk. I'll pass that along.
Well, it was good of you to be traveling around to the homeowners and making sure that, people were taken care of. And if you saw somebody who wasn't, you're right on it, so. Okay, public comment. Supervisor Abad, make a motion.
It's a right-hand heavy deal.
Right-hand heavy deal. Well, I was going to make a comment about smart water meters, but I think I'll pass that. Motion's in order.
I move to determine that PO number 8075 is a sole source purchase for equipment which, by reason of the training of the personnel or an inventory of replacement parts maintained by the local government, is compatible with existing equipment and therefore not suitable for public bidding pursuant to NRS 332.115, and to approve PO number 8075, a request to purchase domestic water meters from Badger Meter, Inc., for a not-to-exceed cost of $165,000 to be funded from the Water Fund account, Water Meters and Services, 520-3502-435-04-49, as provided in the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget.
Motion by Supervisor Abad. Did I ask for public comment on this one? I did, okay. Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Bonkowski. On the motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, thank you very much, folks. Let's now move to some other issues. We'll now move on from Public Works to Finance. This is description of the fund and the Treasury, statements of receipts and expenditures. Go. Good morning.
Good morning, Nancy Paulson, Deputy Finance Director. And this is just an action to accept the report on the condition of each fund of the Treasury as of July 29th, 2014. This is the same report we bring
Statutory
every 2 weeks.
Right. Public comment? Anybody have any questions on this? Board, had a chance to look at it? On the motion? On the right hand? Supervisor Bonkowski.
I move to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the Treasury and the statement of receipts and expenditures through July 29, 2014 per NRS 251.030 and NRS 354.290.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor Abad on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Let's take up 10B. This is the interlocal agreement to collect the 1/8 cent sales tax. This is required by statute. If we're going to do this, you must enter into an agreement with the board, with the State Department of Taxation, and you pay them a fee by statute, which is 0.75%. Nancy, did I leave anything out?
I think you pretty much said it all.
Disclosures are in order.
All right. I want to disclose that I own a business, Adele's, that might financially benefit or be injured by the corridor project, and where the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation on behalf of all the citizens of Carson City will not be materially affected by the possible risks or benefits the corridor projects might have upon my financial interest in Adele's. And if there are any financial risks or benefits to my interest in Adele's, they are no greater than that accruing to any other member of any general business, profession, occupation, or group that is affected by the matter, and therefore I can and will lawfully consider, participate, and vote in this matter pursuant to NRS 281A.420.
Okay. Jim Shirk.
I just had a quick question. I know I sent the email to you about there's no termination date on this. It runs.
Right. It'll terminate when the tax is done being collected.
Right. And how does that, is that similar to the V&T tax? Is there a date on the V&T?
No.
That
the
runs
agreement's
forever?
Exactly. Yeah, until the tax is done being collected.
Okay, thank you.
Somewhere along the line, I thought there was some legislation that was going to knock that fee down from 0.75 to maybe, or did it go from 1.25 to 0.5? I can't remember, but
I'm not sure about the fee.
the fee we pay, that's all right, don't worry about it. Okay, public comment? Board motions in order? Make a motion.
I move to approve an interlocal agreement between Carson City, a political subdivision of the state of Nevada, and the state of Nevada Department of Taxation, the department, collectively the parties, for the purpose of collecting the 1/8 cent sales tax for infrastructure pursuant to NRS 377B.100.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Abel, second by Supervisor Bronkowski on the motion. Discussion? Public discussion, I call.
You did.
Okay. On the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried, unanimous. We'll now be in recess for about 10 minutes. We're going to bring the meeting back to, call a meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're on item number 11. This is city manager issues. The first thing up on 11A is possible action to accept the retention, expansion, and economic development plan for Carson City as presented by the Northern Nevada Development Authority. Who do we have doing this? Marina, you got any opening remarks, or are we just going to go right to it?
Let's go right to it, Mayor.
All right.
And we'll call Northern Nevada Development Authority up.
Come on up. Good morning, Rob. How you doing?
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Supervisor, Ms. Supervisor, and everybody else. Mr. Mayor, it's good to be here today. Thank you so much for this opportunity to meet with you. Excited to present this to you today. I'm going to try to make it just to the point and quick. Everybody told me to be short, and I can't get any shorter, so I'll work hard at it. But I am excited about it. I was thinking about this over the last couple of months, is that for years we've been wanting to do what this program is going to do. It takes a lot of resource to do this, which is why it hasn't been done. Really, truly understanding our manufacturing community is very important to helping them grow. It can't be a cursory visit, how you doing, kind of a visit. It takes a lot of in-depth discussion to understand who these manufacturers buy from, who they sell to, what their supply chain needs are, have strategic relocation take place, understand what their workforce needs are, help them understand what is available to them in the way of state incentives and federal assistance programs and all the types of things that have been brought to us as the governor's representative in the region here for economic development. We're in a unique position to do it. We just haven't had the resource capability to do it. So my hat off to Carson City, to city management for seeing this and working with us to put this program together. The program itself is pretty simple. The goal is to create a one-stop resource. You hear one-stop all the time, but it's amazing how many companies out there just don't know where to go when things happen, or how to expand, where to get help if they run into a federal problem, which we do that kind of stuff all the time. But to support that goal of looking at manufacturers for all their issues attached to growth, expansion, and retention, we have two objectives. One is really to create an environment that would foster positive and dynamic growth within these targeted industries. And the objective number two is to identify the challenges they're facing and then create a solution-based program for them. Again, we have a lot of resources at our disposal. I put together a couple documents that you have in your packet. One is this extensive little grid thing that I put together. And in this, it lays out all the different items that we plan to do, when we plan to do them, and how they work together. I spent a considerable amount of time with city manager and going over this in detail with him and getting his input on this along with the corresponding budget. And we were both pleased with the results of our work together on this thing. And in your packet, I have this document that sort of took everything off of that and made it a lot easier to digest. And it broke it down into first year and second year. So I'll go over that because it's a little bit easier to do. Plus, my eyes aren't good enough to read all the small print on that piece of paper. But what we see basically going on here is, first off, we have to be really good about what we ask and the conversation that we have with them. So with our various committees that we have, like our Design and Construction Committee, which Greg Dye's here today from Brazel Electric, who's the chair of that committee, they help us put this questionnaire together along with our manufacturing group, et cetera, et cetera. because we want to know that when we go in and spend hours with these manufacturers, we're coming back with the data. So there'll be a lot of work put into that. Then there will be a database programmer hired to create a corresponding database to capture all that data. It's important that it doesn't just go by the way, that it actually gets used. We, years ago, probably 9 years ago, NNDA went out and did a survey with a whole team of folks, and they got a lot of data, and it's really hard to know where that data is now. So we really believe in organizing it properly so it's usable. We also want to make it available in a passcode protected website for manufacturers, because we'll be helping them connect with each other. It's amazing how manufacturers will have a manufacturer working inside this tilt-up, won't know 2 tilt-ups down what those folks even do. And yet they're buying a part from someplace else in the country that they could be getting right down the street. So we see this database connecting manufacturers as well. And of course, on that outreach website, it's a two-way conversation that will be developed where we'll put forward the incentive programs, the governor's programs for trade missions and things like that, so the manufacturers know the tools that they have available to them. We had one manufacturer here in town that went through an expansion, and after it was too late, they found out they could get incentives, and they hadn't even told anybody or contacted us or anything. It could have helped them out a lot. We now are working with that. They're going through another expansion, and this one they're going to get more help on. Then the contact list. We really need to refine who we're going to talk to, make sure we're talking to the right person, that we're at the right level in those companies. That'll be put together. Then we're going to create a whole folder and a brochure so that everything that's on the website can be available, even in a lot more detail, in a manual, so that when we sit down with the chief operations officer or the general manager or whoever it might be, we can hand them a useful tool that will help guide them to all these different programs and services that are available to them and get them into more of an expansion mode program. It's interesting to note that in state statistics, 85% of new jobs do not come from relocations. They come from expansions in companies. They come from startups. Only 15% comes from relocations. So we feel like we're going after the sweet spot on this one for Carson City. Then the last thing we'll do is create a visitation plan in that first quarter. Okay. Then second and third quarters, we'll begin our initial round of visitations. And basically we'll be putting a person on, just doing nothing but calling and setting up meetings, getting initial data, working the field so that we can go out and have qualified meetings so that we can cover them all. During that same period, as the data starts to come in from the meetings, from the initial visitations, because those will be us going out and sitting down with these manufacturers in multiple hour meetings. These are not just quick pass-bys. Gather this information, get it in the database, then we'll start analyzing it. And then through these meetings, we'll identify and find the companies that are set up to expand. Once the company says, yeah, we're thinking about hiring some new people, we're thinking about hiring some new equipment, if we had some help on that, we could probably get that done. Then the next thing we do is we send in our expansion expert, which in this case is Danny, because Danny really knows how all these things work with the state. He presents all the clients to the state for the incentives and that type of thing. So he'll come in and work up a case with them and find out what all the other services they need. It might be that their expansion is dependent upon getting a more qualified workforce. So we can reach into Dieter, we can reach into WNC Workforce Development. There's Join, there's other people we can reach into, pull their programs out and package those up and help deliver those back to the manufacturer for their workforce. Anything that will help improve their bottom line is the deal. So after those expansion needs are identified and we start sending our teams in for that, we're also identifying the supply chain needs for relocations and expansions. So we have a more targeted strategic approach to relocations for Carson City. Meaning that if Company X said, wow, if I could have a NADCAP certified plater here, I wouldn't have to send all my metals cross country. Well, let's go try to attract them. First, you have to be, when you go to talk to the NADCAP plater, you have to say, I have 10 different companies in Carson City that spend this much money on plating. If you come here, we can help introduce you to that marketplace and you can have customers existing. So it's a way to get a strategic expansion going. And then during that same time period, we'll be creating an update kit newsletter, and we begin marketing campaign 1. There'll be materials created for that. And what I mean by marketing campaign 1 is we work with various lead source generators and marketing agencies, which are budgeted within the program here, to do 2 marketing campaigns. Basically, they set up a website, a separate website for relocation. They set up a database which is picked on our criteria based on what we found out with our data. We found out here's the kinds of companies would best suit our manufacturing environment right now. We give that parameter to these guys, and they put up the websites, they do the emails, and they have a telemarketing team that gets on the phone. They call up the companies, they qualify them, and they meet real strict criteria. Then once they are qualified, we send our team over, and usually it's in California, that's where it'll be. We send our team over, which would be Danny and his team, along with usually NV Energy goes along with us, sometimes GoEd goes along with us. Sometimes we have commercial real estate folks go along with us. And we make presentations, and we start introducing the opportunity here in Carson City. And then that starts the conversation, which will lead, hopefully, to relocations. We found that using this one source we have in California, that typically we'll start out on a data search for a certain type of company with anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 companies that meet the initial criteria we give. Out of that, we'll usually end up with somewhere between 15 and 20 good qualified meetings. Out of that, we've seen that you can usually get somewhere between 2 to 4 relocations. Granted, what I just described can take a couple years to get done, but that's the process, and it's the only way that really works well. So that's campaign marketing 1. We get into year 2, September through August fiscal year. We continue our initial visitations, and we begin a round 2 of visitations. So our idea is we go and we meet with everybody once, we find out everything they need to do, we get them in the database, then we go back to them on a second round. So now we're months later, we're going back and knocking on the door and saying, here's what we heard from you, here's some new stuff for you, here's some new programs, here's some information that you requested. So we go out and do that second round of visitations, and we do the state visits, the out-of-state visits for potential relocations, because by that time, the marketing campaigns will have taken place and the team will be out. And then we start conducting site visits. We get the companies convinced to come over here, they take a look, we tour them around, that type of thing. And we begin marketing campaign 2. And same thing, starts that same cycle. So 2 rounds, we establish all the material, all the databases, that kind of thing. Go out, do round 1, get all the information we can, strategically target companies for relocation, strategically target companies for expansions, put the dots between there, draw a line between the dots, and do it, and then go out and do a second round of visitations and a second marketing campaign. And that's a real simple way of covering 2 years of work by an awful lot of people to make this happen, both staff and by our committees who will be dedicated to doing this, as well as volunteers within our community. From a budget point of view, when I worked with city manager on this, it was kind of amazing, because we went in and when it looked at the cost of doing this, we put in some known costs that we had for campaigns. We put in some time allocations, weighted those with our cost of staff to do these things. And it came out really close to being right on what we had planned it to do, and that was not contrived. It just sort of ended up that way. It was kind of fun. But the budget comes out just what we're asking for, and I've got that in your sheet. You can take a look at that. I don't need to go over all those numbers. But that's the program. I think it would be a really good program from Carson City. I think it would set the stage for a lot of good economic growth in the future.
Rob, I got a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Maybe I'll kick it off here. As I understand, what you're presenting here is an incremental funding from what you already get from the cities and counties in the state. Does any of this that you're proposing here today, should any of this, what you're proposing today, or is it being conducted under your existing funding mechanisms right now, under your existing programs? Understand what I mean? Do you need a full boat increase, or does some of it just mean a reallocation of effort in Carson City from existing technique or existing tools that you have now?
It's the same type of thing we do, but this requires this kind of funding to really make this happen. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but like take the marketing campaigns. Those are hard cost dollars we have to put out. It costs somewhere between $15,000 and $17,000 to do a campaign. And if we don't have that resource, we can't do the campaign. What we do now is Danny goes over to the trade shows. He makes some annual trips over, some regular trips to California. We go over with NV Energy. We do things with site selectors. So we basically are here to answer the phone, help these companies get here, go out and find new companies, work with our commercial real estate group. We do all that, okay? And that's on a regional basis. And thankfully to Carson City and Douglas and Lyon and and Churchill, the contributions made under our normal funding and what we get from the state helps us field a regional program. The thing we're talking about here is a more specific program aimed just at Carson City, so that the materials that go out, the websites, everything is just Carson City oriented. So we have two different programs going. We have a regional program, and then we have local specific programs based on the ability.
Is there a template or a program that you've already implemented? I think when you were here last time, you told me that maybe one or two more of the other counties have done this, Douglas in particular.
Yes, sir.
Was that done through NNDA?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we contracted with Douglas County, and we did a similar program. It was less retention and expansion oriented and more recruitment oriented. But we created specific Douglas County materials. We went out to trade shows and represented Douglas County. We hired this marketing firm that went out, and this is where we got our numbers on how it works, because it worked well. And when you look at the relocation bit and compare during that time period Douglas County to other counties within the region, it's astronomically different. It worked out extremely well.
Yeah, well, I read in the paper this morning about Microdell.
Right.
I'm a little disappointed that, I don't know, I don't certainly profess to be in every meeting or know what's going on, but, I know we met with Microdell. Right. And, then all of a sudden to see them pop up in Douglas, how does that happen? I mean, I got it that,
right.
That they're picking counties or what happened there. And I also know that this wasn't an NNDA sponsored one. This was you were kind of on the periphery a little bit, but if you know what happened there.
Well, when they first came in, they met with you, Mayor.
Right.
They also met
Maybe
with...
I turned them off.
No. Actually,
they were Israeli, I know that.
They liked it, actually. And Carson is not... There's more than just the fish farm. Let me start there. And there's another part of what they do that they have another manufacturing opportunity for Carson City. And we're talking to them about that, where it fits us better than it does Douglas. But to answer your question specifically, Bentley's got the water. They have the agrodynamics going there, so they have a place to put all the waste material from the fish, and they also have the water that meets standards. And it was really more Bentley's holdings against Southern Nevada. That's really where the tug of war came in. And we have been involved with them quite considerably. But companies, it's like Al Jaconis, our board president, will tell you, and I've heard him say this 100 times, you can't tell a company where they're going to go. You can't make up their mind for them. What we do in economic development is say, what are your requirements? And now here's all the places that meet those requirements, and then help them find what's best for them. And that's what happens.
Okay. Well, I got that.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, when we met with them, the initial fish farm I thought was an intriguing idea. What was even more intriguing to me was that this group of folks were really community oriented about how they design additional products unrelated to fish, but
right.
Like playground equipment and things, yeah. learning experiences for kids, which I thought was really rather fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of bummed, I'll tell you that but that happens. But let me just focus about down. How do you know if we do this? How do you know that it worked or didn't work?
As far as this
Yeah, if we
program
do,
was being
yeah.
proposed?
Yeah. How do you know that?
Well, there'll be a couple ways. One, we'll know from the expansions that take place within the manufacturing community itself. We'll know from the data that we collect as to what's going on out there. And third, we'll look at the relocations. You know, how many leads are getting generated, how many of those turns into actual clients, and how many get on a track to come to Carson.
Will we get a feel for that at the end of the first year, or is this a 2-year deal that has to be 2 years, or will we get a feel for whether or not it's working, and then so that the second half of this bumps in? Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll get a feel as we go along, for sure. As far as it depends on which piece you're looking at. Like, let's say, for instance, we get to manufacturer X and we find out they have a problem in hiring mid-level management, that's their biggest issue. And so we sit down with Dave Steiger and his group at Western Nevada College, and we work within the design criteria and curriculum that match what they need, and it makes their life easier and they're able to hire people. We'll know from that. When it comes to the data to know that, yes, we've identified key targets for relocation. When we get the meetings set up, we'll know that meetings are being established. So there'll be metrics that we can pull out of this thing all along. And what I will be doing with Danny is we'll be sitting down with city manager and working out how those metrics will work. And we plan to work real closely with him and his office on doing that kind of stuff.
All right, I'm done. Who wants to go next? Good. Karen.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
You answered one part of my question, and that was our engagement with WNC and providing an educated workforce. But when we met with the school district, we also talked about a really important piece, and that is our school district and how it is marketed to these companies coming in, because the perception is that our schools are a lesser quality, which in fact is not the case.
That's correct.
So does this include something to that effect, that you're working with the school district to, on a marketing piece, to talk to these manufacturers about what we offer here? That's my first question.
Yeah, and the answer to that's yes. We've met with Superintendent Stokes and his folks. We're talking about the marketing piece. We're contributing to how that ought to look and how, what it should say. Came up even with some creative designs. And the idea is that it becomes cross-pollinated. They'll have the piece that basically sells the attributes of our school system that we will carry with us out to all the manufacturers. We'll also take the headlines out of that and put it into our marketing piece, translate it more directly for manufacturing. We'll also then have it in our marketing campaign that goes into California. Because you're absolutely right. The Carson City Schools doesn't get, it gets held hostage to state statistics. So part of our conversation is how do we pull our stats out and how do we compare them? In fact, we're talking about kind of a label like a cut above, and taking that out. So yes, it's a very exciting part of this, and it's an essential part.
Great, thank you. And then your progress, the way I understand it on the graphs that we are looking at, basically payment, should this funding be awarded, is a progress payment. You're doing X and you're being paid periodically throughout the course of a year based on what you're producing.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and what our costs are.
Okay.
It's like when we go to hire the marketing company in California, we have to have the money to give to them. So we'd work out an invoicing system with city manager.
And then last question, based on the information that you provided today, and thank you for that, you talk about business development Carson City from 2010 to the present.
Right.
You listed as 195 direct jobs, 95 indirect jobs. Of those direct jobs, how many of them are primary higher paying jobs? Do you know?
Well, they're all primary because they're within industry. So they're manufacturing jobs.
All right.
Okay.
That's the answer I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Rob. First a comment, then a question. First comment is that I believe that the purpose of a retention and expansion plan would be to create long-term relationships with our manufacturers.
Yes, sir.
And that is a long-term goal. In other words, it takes time to build up those relationships, but it's the relationship that's important, more so than seeing statistical job creation, say, in the first 3, 6, 9 months.
Right.
Okay.
And if I might comment on that, sir,
Sure.
Just to agree with you with this statement, that one of the biggest issues we have is not really understanding what's inside those tilt-ups. You kind of know, but you don't know. And so this program would allow us to get much deeper into and create those relationships. You're right on.
Then approximately 2 months ago, when this item came to the board originally, I made a motion to have you come back with a specific plan and specific funding requirements, and Supervisor Abab seconded that motion. Then there was a proposed amendment to that motion to have you provide information on budget numbers for the plan, specific numbers for the number of companies and jobs that have been created just specifically in Carson City. And so then after that, I worked with you to create this 2-page document that we received as late material today. And I just wanted to put on the record that this 2-page document satisfies my requirements to accept the amended motion. And I would like to ask the seconder if this document satisfies the intent for her to accept the amended motion.
I would say yes to that.
Thank you.
Well, they may satisfy them. It doesn't satisfy me. I specifically asked for a budget, specifically. I didn't ask for percentages of your budget. I asked specifically for a budget, and I got this in response, and I had asked twice for it. And so it doesn't satisfy me, and I don't think it should satisfy anybody on this board, is to have your expense record and your revenue just show a percentage of what, suppose this 29% you get from the governor's office is, $5 million. Supposing your expenses are just astronomical. You may laugh at that.
No, I'm just hoping I was wishing it was $5 million.
Okay, but I want to know, you're asking us to give taxpayer money to you, and you won't provide us a budget as to how much money you acquire through your nonprofit organization. I don't think it's a problem for you to give us a budget. If there's some hurdle here, tell me why we cannot see the numbers that you have personal expenses totaling 52%. Well, what is that? You're asking us to give you more money of taxpayers, and you have listed on your budget personal expenses 52% equal our expenses. I think this is unacceptable.
Well, I would agree, sir, that I won't, go where I really would like to say right now. But I will tell you this, and I'll ask you this. Do you require a full budget disclosure from all people who contract to do business with the city?
I don't think we're going to compare you to everybody.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Why is that?
Because I don't want to.
Hang on, we're not going to get into,
If you don't want to give us a budget, tell us.
We are not going to get into debate
And don't
here.
do this to me.
All right, I don't want you doing that, all right? I don't want, we're going to be talking professionally here. I mean, you've got a question, you think you answered it. If you didn't, go on to the next question, Jim. I know that you're concerned about it, but let's see if we can go forward a little bit here without getting into debate.
What you sent over to the board representing your budget does not represent a budget. Also, business development you brought to Carson City, you say you brought 6 companies here. You also received my email back to you about those 6 companies that I went out and visited those 6 companies. You remember that email?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There was 2 companies out of business. One was working out of his house. There was no 995 direct jobs.
That's incorrect, sir.
Well, you didn't correct me in my email, and I asked you, am I correct?
I'm not required to do so, sir.
I'm sorry?
I think the question, and Jim, I don't mean to jump in. I mean, I guess I'm in the middle of it. I just want to try and make sure that we're focusing on the issue here of whether or not we should approve this incremental funding for this project. And I think that Jim has a good question to you, is, I think Supervisor Abel mentioned it too, there are 195 direct jobs. Is that a good number or not? I mean, because from his travels, he doesn't, I think, what I'm hearing from him say, they're not.
He went to the wrong places. What he did was he didn't work with us. He went on the internet and tried to find companies based on information that we gave him. He wanted to know the list of the companies that we brought. We gave him that list. Then he took it upon himself to go out and try to visit these companies. He went to actually to the home of one of the principals of the company.
Okay, let's back off. I mean, I don't want to get into the he said, she said, if we can avoid that. Is the 195 number a good number?
Yes, it's a good number.
Primary jobs?
It's a good number based on what the companies have told us when they came into town, that they would be hiring during that first year.
Okay. All right. Go, Jim, I'm sorry.
That's not true, because they've been in business the first year. Some of those companies you brought in 2010. So they've been in business for a number of years. The number is not correct. And I can go to any place I feel I can and will go to introduce myself and ask for some information from them. I got an email, I sent it to you, and I also got emails from your members saying I'm not allowed to do that. I shouldn't do that because they're referral from you, and I'm not allowed to do that. And you got that email, and I never responded to that as well. So there's some numbers that are not jiving here correctly.
Okay. All right.
I'll move on then. I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Well, I mean, you know, no, I don't. Let's see where it goes, Jim.
And a letter you dated May 29th to the mayor and board of supervisors, you said that the current $24,000 Carson City NNDA funds will remain in place to go towards a regional program. Why would we want that money to go when we're getting you $76,000 for just Carson City? Why can't the whole $100,000 go for Carson City? Why do we want to go regional?
Well, because that is the way that the governor's office set up the region, and that's the way that the city chose to participate and has for years, and years. It goes towards our operational expenses. It helps us field a regional program. When a client, when we talk about workforce, okay, and we talk about developing workforces, it impacts the whole region. When we talk about capital acquisition programs, it goes to the whole region. When we talk about going out and doing global trade, it impacts the whole region, okay? So the state and the counties come together to pay a percentage of that regional program for us to go and do that. It's an important part of economic development. Then underneath that comes local programs where we can go out with additional resources, like for instance we're preparing to do for Churchill, where we have a program going for them. Like we're going to be meeting with Yerington for a program for Yerington, like we met with Fernley for a program with Fernley just this week. It's a way for the local governments to invest specifically in their brand, okay? But the regional program is maintained. The cost of fielding somebody, just one person, that could take the calls and service the companies who are inquiring in this region, it cannot be funded with $24,000. But to share the costs amongst the counties, you get an effective program. And that's the way it's set up.
In my email I sent earlier to you, I asked you, and I didn't receive this answer as well, how many premier investors, platinum investors, gold investors, silver, bronze, and professional do you have in each category, and how much do you collect?
Yeah, you did ask that.
Okay.
Fortunately, that's not any of your business. It's confidential information. It has nothing to do with the subject at hand. And I don't know why you take it upon yourself to try to come into these things.
We're not going to get into personal attack stuff here. Let's just try and stay on point here. I mean,
I'm asking a question.
You got
I already answered it.
Okay. And so, you know, I'll just give everybody a little.
You also asked that for me to find out any information that I'd come in and sign a non-disclosure with you. Has any other board members signed that non-disclosure with you?
Yes.
How many non-disclosures have been signed?
All the other four.
All the other four?
Yeah.
So they're going to vote on, you're going to vote on this, and you sign a non-disclosure, so you've been told factual things that you're not going to share with the public, you're not going to share at this meeting, and you're going to vote on it. I think that's wrong. Did you ask the governor to sign a non-disclosure form?
Well,
You get money from him.
just
Did you ask him?
Just ask the question. Answer the question.
No. So you ask us, but you don't ask the governor?
Okay. I don't know where that,
Well, if
Go-
he's
goes.
asking us, why isn't he asking the governor, who he gets money from as well?
well, I can tell you, and I don't mean to get, this is kind of off the topic here, but if you go down to the governor's office and ask what the status of the Tesla negotiations are, you're going to be saying, I ain't going to tell you. Period. And that's because I think that these NDA agreements, whether they're done for confidentiality reasons, not for the purpose of trying to preclude public input, but they're done because the people who are coming here don't want their names out there. And that's all it's trying to do is, promote stuff. But
I don't think an elected official should sign a non-disclosure form and then vote on something to give taxpayers money away.
Got it.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, understood.
On your NNDA Carson City proposal for economical development, in Phase 1, Action 1, you're going to spend 9 months gathering information. You don't have any of this information on hand, not through the governor's office or through Chris at the business connection that does manufacturing?
No, not the kind of information we're looking for. We know that they exist. We can get names, but the real hard data where you go in and really dig out what their challenges are, that no one's done that. No one has organized that data.
The governor's economic development has not done anything like that?
No, we have not.
I'm confused, I think.
Yeah.
Because
Just
Dream It,
be
Do
Be
It,
careful, Rob, just,
the governor's economic
Yes, sir.
development plan, there's nothing in here about manufacturing?
Well, of course there's things in there about manufacturing.
Well, I just asked you, couldn't you get this information from here? Why do we need to spend 9 months doing it and spend our
Because the
money?
information we're looking for is not contained in there.
It says Nevada, it says Carson City, I read this. It defines Carson City. I talked to Michael Scatz at the governor's office. I sent him an email asking if he could collaborate with you and give you this information. He said he could.
We have all that information.
Then why do we need to spend 9 months gathering it?
That's not the information we're looking for.
Oh, okay.
And
That
I've
makes
had
sense.
many conversations with Mike Skaggs over the need to gain this information. And because we represent the Governor's Office of Economic Development, all things having to do with economic development in these 5 counties, we've talked a lot about putting forward a program like this to go out and dig deeper into manufacturing. And that's what this collection of data would do. But it's not just a collection of data, it's also creating the relationship, understanding their needs, helping them understand what's available to them. You can go on multiple websites and learn about the incentive programs, but the manufacturers aren't knowledgeable about it. They don't go look. They don't even know that it's there to go look for.
What about the information that Chris Holtz have on all the manufacturing? He works strictly with them. Sorry. What about Chris Holt? What about the information he has?
hang on, do you know what information Chris Holt has that could be used?
I know that Chris went out and visited manufacturers, and I know that he talked to them and got kind of a state of the, how you guys doing kind of a conversation, but he doesn't have the data. Neither does Ray Bacon at the Manufacturers Association. He doesn't have it. And we work real closely with Ray. So I mean, what we're looking for isn't there right now. It's not at the depth that we need.
On the program of what to dream to do it, I know you're familiar with this, right? Nothing, this wouldn't be beneficial to cut our costs, to gather information?
Well, as the president of Dream It Do It, and I'm very familiar with Dream It Do It, NNDA paid the license fee and brought it to the state.
Correct.
Okay, and like I said, I'm the acting chair and president of that organization right now. What we need the manufacturing community to know is what can Dream It Do It do for them. Dream It Do It is a program that is aimed at potential workforce. It's to dispel the myth of manufacturing in parents and children who could possibly choose a career in manufacturing. It needs the manufacturer's support monetarily in order to take that message out. A very active, good program with Manufacturing Day and a lot of other things that Director Gussick does on that with that program. We see Dream It being a part of this program. In fact, when we do the outreach to these manufacturers, we're not just bringing them state incentives. We're bringing them Dream It Do It. We're bringing them Carson City Education. We're bringing them workforce development at WNC. We're bringing them Join. We're bringing them a whole host of different things, resources they don't know they have available to them right now.
You're going back to your proposal in Phase 2, Action 1, what is the export of education and assistance? I think I got that right.
I don't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
It's a question from I was mailed. Let me see if I can make heads of it. Action 1, utilizing the governor's office. Expansion effort and financial. I'm sorry, I have to pass on that as well. Action 2, not until year 2 will career pathways be addressed. Is that, why such a long span?
When we, I guess the best way to answer that is that we are a part of, in fact, our manufacturing committee is comprised of the Manufacturers Forum, which is around 20-some manufacturers within Carson City, primarily in Carson Valley. And we put together a curriculum program with Western Nevada College, which still is graduating students in basic manufacturing skills. It took us 9 months to get all of the skills identified. It's not a fast process. Then it took us an additional number of months to work with Western Nevada College to identify which classes taught those skills. And for skills that weren't taught at Western Nevada College, they had to decide which class it would be taught in, okay? So it's not a 1, 2, 3 thing. It does take a lot of time to put it together.
On Action 3A, you mentioned you're going to get a contact list. Where will you get the contact list from?
We're going to get that from several different sources. One would be Hoover's, one will be Dieter. Hoover's gives us the best thing because it gives us a lot of the right names. We'll be reaching out to Ray and working with him. So it's a matter of putting the whole thing together.
By Ray, you mean Ray Bacon?
Ray Bacon, I'm sorry, sir.
It was alluded to in the press and everywhere else that on your website there was the hotel. And I just want to make sure that it was on your website.
Hang on, we got to stay on the,
Well, it is part of redevelopment.
well, but we're talking about a supplemental funding for relocation for companies that are here. Let's see if we can stay within the confines of what the open meeting law says we're in here to talk about. I mean,
Okay. Just a couple of quick points on your viewpoint here. I'm a little confused as to the commercial real estate team. One is out of Reno. Is that within our region? Or part of what we pay you to be within our region?
The Commercial Real Estate Committee has very strict standards on who they allow in to that committee, as far as their experience as a commercial real estate agent, frankly, their attitude. It's been stated we've had a lot of brokers that want to get in on it, and the conversation takes place that, if you're coming here because you're just interested in what's in it for me, this is not the place for you. If you're interested in our kids and our grandkids and the future of our community, it's a good place for you. If you think you're going to come here and make a lot of money, wrong place. If you're here to work shoulder up and make the community happen, make the community better, good place for you. So we've chosen very carefully. We look for skill sets. When we have companies that come in, I'll give you an example. We have a company that came to us. We've worked with them. Danny's worked with them for a long time. No one's going to tell these companies where to go. They got to find the right circumstance. We worked with them for a lot of time. We couldn't find a place for them in this region. So we have to turn them over to Reno because that's the right place for them. Nevada wins. That's where they're going. Okay? As far as you paying us to draw a line around us to where we only work within a specific thing and we're not looking at the bigger whole, that would be counterproductive for the state, for the region, and for Carson City.
On the, I guess, just out of curiosity, in this brochure, you only mention, let me see if I can find it real quick. Just want to point out, you only mentioned one elected official in Carson, and there's 5 of us in your brochure. Also, in your real estate, you only have 2 gentlemen to handle the whole region.
I'm sorry.
I'm just pointing that out, that's all.
Which brochure is it?
What brochure are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about.
This one.
Okay.
You only mention Brad. I'm just letting you know there's more than one.
Okay, message received. Go.
Yeah.
Next question.
I don't feel comfortable increasing, for what you brought to Carson City, the 6 businesses that you say you brought here. I've talked to them. I went out there, even though I didn't have permission from you. I don't think I need it. I don't think I need permission from anybody to go talk to any business within Carson City. You still boast of 6. There's not 6. My email I sent you, your members responded to me saying I can't do this. I think we'd be better off looking at a long-term investment with Chris Holt and doing with him, partnering with him, and have him, because he's been working explicitly with manufacturers for years. And I think we'd be better advised to invest our money with him and bring him to the table and work with the manufacturers on that side. You're doing a great job on everything else, but I don't think we need to expand at this point. We've got downtown coming in. We're $7 million there. We got legalized marijuana coming to town that's just going to raise revenue up. And I don't think we need to make this investment now. And if we are going to put this money into this, I would say we hold off, put it here, and put it into the next state fair that will come to Carson City. I think that's a wiser investment. And I still go back to, I would not sign a non-disclosure form as an elected official. They can do whatever they want, but as an individual elected official, I would never sign a non-disclosure form with anybody.
That's not a question, so that's a comment.
I'm just
Okay.
making a comment.
Understood, I got you. I just don't want to, okay. Other comments or questions? Public comment. Let's try and keep it on the point. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning, Lori Bagwell. What I'd like to comment on this one is I sat through the prior hearings listening to the fact that we don't necessarily have enough emergency generators to deal with needs in our community. So my discussion on this item is I also understand in October you're going to be putting together a strategic planning session. And so I'm wondering if this is the best use of your money. You just started your new budget year. You're going to take this money out of your contingency account. And I'm concerned that maybe you should think about this expenditure a little bit longer and incorporate it into your strategic planning session in October and get with Public Works to find out our true emergency needs in the community. So I'm looking at this issue to talk about the ranking of its priorities. And have you really thought that through, considering, again, it's coming out of your contingency? It wasn't budgeted. And is this the best use of the money at this time? And since you're going to do a strategic plan in October, that's not a very long delay to determine whether this is the best use of the money.
What's your sense, if I can ask you, what's your sense of the plan that was presented? I got you on the priority issue. What's your sense of the plan that was presented?
You know,
not in terms of its dollars,
right.
but in terms of its focus and workability.
You know, I think that you also might give an opportunity to Mr. Holt to see, and Mr. Bacon, who work in the manufacturing. I didn't hear either of them give you alternatives. I do think manufacturing is central for Carson City, but I'd like to hear what other alternatives or opportunities to meet the need. And can we get that for a less price? I don't know. But I think you should explore that, which again, you could do in your strategic planning and give the others an opportunity to weigh in. I certainly think Mr. Bacon could comment on whether or not the manufacturers want to participate and whether or not we could do it less expensive through his group. I don't know. But I'd look at it as an alternative.
Okay, thanks, Lori. All right. Other public comment? Hi, Bill. Good morning. Is it still a nice Chamber of Commerce day out there?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Bill Miles, local developer, local contractor. You know, I apologize, I was a little late to listen to Rob's presentation. I'm a little taken back with the comment on Chris Holt because he brags about being a private economic development. And as far as I know, he's never gone out and asked for public funds. So maybe that's changed. The other thing I want to point out was Chris's article in Sunday paper when I think it was 17 of the 35 companies he visited were a result of the NNDA. This NNDA organization is an organization I've been working with for 25 years here. And, you know, we're thinking regional. And I have given an example to a few folks where, you know, Dayton companies who have purchased buildings out there, a good portion of their management have bought homes in Carson City so their children could attend classes here in Carson City. So I just want to come forward and say I support an increase to the NNDA. I've seen the good they do. They're really focused on workforce education, which is one of the biggest complaints that I've heard in this region of manufacturers that come in here. And I've dealt with a lot of manufacturers. And then just the last comment I have, non-disclosure agreements. I've been relocating companies here for, you know, 25 years and I've worked with them. And I've sat in a number of meetings where a governor was in the meeting or a lieutenant governor was in the meeting and they had signed non-disclosure agreements. So, Jim, not to be condescending, but I don't really understand, you know, why you wouldn't sign one. So, I mean, right now I probably have over a dozen non-disclosure agreements signed with various companies for various reasons. So anyway, I just want to say I believe that our current management here at the NNDA is doing a fantastic job in 25 years of working with them. This is the best I've ever seen the organization function. Thank you.
Jim has a question, I think.
No, just a statement. I did talk to Chris, and he is willing to come in and talk to me and the city manager and seeing about working with the city, with the manufacturing, and I've got that set up for next week. And I think Bacon, I've got an email out to him as well, and I believe he will say, hey, I'd like to come in and talk to you as well. So just as Ms. Bagwell's mentioned, I think we should put this on the back burner until we look at and explore other possibilities.
Well, Jim, maybe we should get you to sign an NDA, come to a meeting at the NNDA with a group of us folks who have been working in this for years and years, have lived in Carson for years and years. There could be some idiosyncrasies possibly with Chris Holt and his group that you don't understand that I won't say anything anymore here about. But I really think you need to look at a 25, 30-year history of the NNDA and what they've done here.
Okay, that's it. We're going to.
I understand. It's a good point, and I agree.
We're not. Okay, we're not going to debate.
I'm not debating.
All right.
I'm going to clarify. I'm not going to sign it as elected official. I prefer not to sign it non-disclosure. That is my preference. That being said, I'm going to stick to it.
Well,
no, that's it.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry.
That's it. You know, any other public comment? Just kind of an aside, reminds me, one time I was taking a deposition in Reno and up against a pretty contentious group, and I was going at this witness pretty hard, and the witness would never answer my question, and I kept going at it, and finally the other opposing counsel told me, he says, you know, Mr. Kroll, why don't you just move on? You asked your question, you didn't like the answer, so what are you doing? Move on. I mean, you got your question, and to a degree, I think, you know, that's kind of where we go. We're up here to make policy decisions, and you know, we can debate among ourselves. So, and I appreciate, Jim, all the work that you do to go into analyzing these things. And but I raise that because I just, you know, we want to try and stay on point if we can, and if we can't, we can't. But Jim,
I understand. I appreciate that, Mayor, and I thank you for your leniency and patience with me. I just want to know, did you win the case?
Actually, I did.
Well, then persistence pays off.
You're all right, man. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. We're going to bring it back to the board here. All right. What's the board's discussion or whatever? Let's
I'll
put a
make a
motion on the table. We'll
Yep.
discuss it and see where we go.
I move to accept the retention and expansion economic development plan for Carson City as presented by the Northern Nevada Development Authority and approve funding in the amount of $74,574 for fiscal year 14-15 and $75,682 for fiscal year 15-16 to be funded from contingency for fiscal year 14-15 and to be built into the budget for fiscal year 15-16.
Second.
Okay. Everybody clear on this? Let's talk about it then. Everybody, on discussion on the motion.
Discussion.
Go.
You know, I've been a sponsor of this program because I've worked with NNDA going back almost, not quite as long as Bill, but almost close to 20 years. I worked with Chris when he was the executive director of NNDA. I've worked with Rob since day one. We have a gap here in Carson City where we have neglected our manufacturing industry, and they are the foundation of our economy. It is critically important that we build a relationship with our manufacturers so that we create and retain our economic base, and that's what this program is about. Everything else, my opinion, so I don't step on Jim's toes, my opinion is that nothing else matters except that we start down the road of creating the relationship with our manufacturing industry so that we not only retain the jobs that we have here that are the highest paying jobs for the work sector that we have, but encourage our manufacturers to reach out to us so that we can help them and be partners with them rather than just ignoring them but taking their tax dollars. So as far as putting this off till October, it's not a matter of whether we should do this today or a month from now. We should have been doing this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and we have suffered because of that. So for that reason, I sponsored this and I support it 100%.
Douglas County has done this and partnered with NNDA and to their success in terms of getting companies in there, and I think that's extremely important. Creating and finding out what those synergy of businesses are that create the success for our existing manufacturing is huge for this community. The report that we have in front of us goes from 2010 to the present, which is during the economic downturn. So I only see a positive for this, and I agree with Brad. This should have been done a long time ago, and it's about investing in our community.
I disagree. I think we have, in Carson City, we have many factors coming into play here that's going to change our community. You just passed a one-in sales tax, and we're going to fund $7 million to do downtown and numerous other corridors, and to the tune of $20 million. We just passed and legalized marijuana and cultivation. That is going to change our economic culture forever and bring huge amounts, from what this board previously said, huge amounts of tax dollars and revenue to the city. To invest this money, if NNDA had came before us and said, look, here's all the manufacturers, we've already sent out an email to them, they all aboard, they want to work with us, I see progress there. But now what we're doing here is we're setting up the whole program. We're doing everything by giving them this money. Should have been done 10 years ago? We just heard NNDA from Chris worked with some of these manufacturers years ago and brought them here. Obviously, I don't know if they've been in touch with them since, but if we're going to move forward, I think, as Ms. Bagwell said and as I've stated here, we should look at this, wait, and talk to other such persons who could help us as well. That's my opinion.
My sense is that this fits with what we're doing on the expenditure of the 1/8 cent. I don't recall saying that the medical marijuana issue is going to raise money here. I mean, because I'll tell you, I mean, on the topic, but off the topic, but I look at medical marijuana as being a constitutional requirement where the Constitution, Article 4 of the Nevada Constitution, says that the state legislature will adopt regulations that will implement medical marijuana. I don't see that medical marijuana in and of itself being a big boon in the economic drivers of this community. Now, I understand that people are looking forward down the road. I got that. But from right now, my focus is on what this Constitution requires us to do. And that's where we are. It's medical marijuana only. And I think that our manufacturing community is a key driver in what we have in this here. And frequently we overlook the value and the people, the value that community brings to us. I mean, I don't recall who was the people who designed the industrial air park out there. Maybe some out in the room know. But I will tell you, you know, that ranks right up there with me with the consolidation of Carson City and as a city and county government. It's a big deal. And we need to do things that are going to promote and move that forward, because we get the types of jobs in here, it's only going to work if, you know, hand in hand with, you know, with the entrepreneurial spirit that we're now driving downtown. It'll happen, but we have to invest in our future, and that's how I see this. I mean, and I tend to agree with Mr. Miles that, you know, this is an investment. So that's where I am. And I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. John, you're welcome to comment.
The issues discussed here are varied, and I don't know that they're all really applicable to what the agenda item is. The question I have is, should we spend money for economic development? Should we spend taxpayer money for economic development, or should we leave economic development to the private sector? And I'm torn between that, because I really think economic development is a private sector function. I don't know that Carson City should be involved in it. But talking to others, and he's not here, but I will say the new city manager, he feels that economic development is very important. I don't like the fact that this is coming out of the contingency. I really don't like that. I don't know why the timing is such. Should we push it off until we don't have the timing issue? Should we push it off for a year and put it in next year's budget? I don't know if it would cause a whole lot of difference, but I suspect it might, because I see the economics of Carson City are changing, the economics of the region are changing, and I don't like the fact that Douglas County, Lyon County are getting all of the jobs and we're getting all of the costs, schools, roads, etc. The other thing is, there's an email, a letter to the editor, I think, in the appeal from the manufacturing segment, especially out on the Arrowhead area, complaining that they haven't been taken care of or considered by the city. And I'm very sensitive to those people out there, because, like it or not, that's our lifeblood out there, and we need to spend money on roads out there. We need to spend, we need to have a philosophy that area is sacrosanct, that we're not going to put other things like bicycle lanes out there. We're going to keep that as a manufacturing area, someplace where big trucks and noise are allowed in Carson City. I remember a situation over here off of Fairview where a business was driven out because we allowed housing, a different board allowed housing next door to a light manufacturing area, and it's still manufacturing out there. I think we need to take care of our manufacturers. This is a program that's directed towards them. That's the benefit. And so I probably will vote for it despite the fact it comes out of the contingency agenda, just to get it started, because I think our manufacturers are important enough that we need to spend some effort on them. As to disclosure and non-disclosure agreements, I ran into someone yesterday. They told me in confidentiality, in confidence about a business that they are bringing to Carson City, and told me not to tell anybody, and so I won't.
Thanks for bringing it up. No, it's like I did. You know, I heard this. Now you. What is that, though? All right. On the further discussion from the board? On the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
4-1. Okay, we'll now take up the fair briefing. You
I
wanna
will take this.
Take it up. All right.
This is not going to be, even though it does say in the agenda, the final report, this will not be the final report. I plan to be coming back to you in September with the financials from the fair, and I would like to get an idea from you today if you would like me to bring an action item back for a fair next year. So with that being said, let me just start by saying I think we had an amazing event. As you probably could have guessed, I might have been on little pins and needles prior and wondering if anyone was going to show up. And we had, and without having a charge for the gate fee, it makes it a little bit difficult for us to know exact numbers of people that did attend the fair. What I can tell you is that what I have so far in numbers of attendance is we had the shuttle service, the Jack bus, but not Amador, because we also hired Amador lines. I don't have numbers from Amador. From Jack, we have just under 10,000 that took the shuttle to the fair. We had about 500 of the Comstock Cowboys on Friday night, and I don't have the numbers yet for the Ranch Rodeo, but the Ranch Rodeo was on Saturday, had more bleacher seats than the which was kind of designed that way, but then the Friday night concert. So I think our numbers are going to be significant. You heard from Sandy Wallen this morning that they estimated 200 to 300 a day through their, what she was focused on is the rabbit and chicken exhibit, as well as their garden area. And we would estimate that probably almost double that went through the livestock area. The livestock area was extremely popular, and for a good thing. And there were a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions, and an awful lot of people bringing children through and themselves to really learn about the kids' projects and what that means, and what all kinds of different questions, from even arguments to the fact that we don't think that's a sheep, you know, as we were getting from some of the people attending. It was pretty good. We had, I have to give a lot of kudos to our fair manager, Susan Taylor. She did a phenomenal job. She brought in also people she was used to working, and she's done quite a few fairs over in California. Having her was really valuable because she not only had the experience to do the fair, to get us the right layout, and also to bring with her, she brought her own staff, which had been experienced in doing fairs, and it really helped us on the actual operations. Now, that's not to say I know we didn't do everything perfect, and we certainly learned a lot, and how we would maybe organize a little bit better and do some things a little bit different with sound and concerts. But overall, I was inundated with comments. In fact, I really never heard negative comments. I had people coming up to me daily, praising the effort, praising the fair, appreciative that they have this place to go. And I can't tell you how many people have asked if this is held again next year. That number one, we had many more that wanted to volunteer, and number two, we had others that wanted to be vendors. I believe most of our vendors did well. I don't have we have food vendor numbers, and I can tell you that when you get your final report, we'll show that to you. Our percent of what we made off food vendors is about $12,000. And that was the way we charged it was, that was additional monies coming in. So the way that was charged is a food vendor paid $500, and then we got 20% of their sales, but we subtracted from the total the $500 that they had already paid us. So I had 20-something food vendors, we had about 15 food vendors, 13 to 15, and out of that, then that's where we made an additional right around $12,000. So then that doesn't include the $500 we had already received from them. We had, I had 2 people during the livestock show come up to me, one from Smith Valley, from Lyon County, and the other a local person. The Smith Valley gal who came with the beef club, she came up to me and said how much she loved the facilities, which was great because we had a tent, but it all worked out really well. She said not only was she highly impressed, but that they were closing out one of their youth accounts and they wanted to make a donation to the right show. And she said they felt this was the right show. So she didn't have the exact number for me. I gave her the information where she's going to send a check. It was about $1,100 is what it's going to be. Then I had another gentleman from Carson City whose son shows, and he pretty much said the same thing. He said he was highly impressed. He said that he felt the livestock area was just exactly what they wanted, and he's going to be sending a donation of as well. The word he told me was $500. I had Eric Olson runs a large dairy in Fallon, Nevada, Hillside Dairy. They milk about 2,000 head. He'd been kind of on the fence about coming. I mean, as timing with any events, it's very difficult in the summer to get events that don't conflict with others. So the Churchill County Fair was going on, and I know that was a tough decision for him to come. We made some exceptions for bringing in milking cows a little bit later and exceptions for them to go home a little bit earlier. He was having so much fun, and he was going to initially get out of there first thing Sunday morning. He had to get the cows back in the milk line by 3 o'clock. I think he left about 1:45, and I thought, I hope they make the milk line. He just complimented how much he enjoyed the fair and how he was very impressed with the people, again, coming through the livestock area and the questions they were asking. And I think we had a phenomenal group of kids who were extremely patient with the public coming through, and they were actually extremely enthused to answer the questions that the public asked. We had, I just looked around the fair and I couldn't believe the amount of families. I couldn't believe the amount of people of all ages that came through. And I think we had, that's the other thing I want to tell you, we had the executive director, Stephen, and his last name escapes me right now, the Western Fairs Association, had heard about our fair. I had in April asked that Vern Cron and Scott Fahrenbrick go down to a conference in Pima County, Arizona, that they were doing on fairs. Well, down there they met Stephen and they invited him to come up. Well, my gosh, he did. He came, and he came on Thursday, and he said he was highly impressed with the fair, and he said, if this is your effort at a first year, he goes, you guys have a winner. And that was important to me because in California, every county pretty much has a fair. Now, I know they're losing funding and have lost funding like a lot of places have, but they're they've had in the past a lot of state funding as well as county funding. So they have really nice fairgrounds, and they have the ability to put on some really nice fairs. So those kind of comments were, I think we should hold them close to heart. I think that those are important comments to have. And, California sometimes seems like they just can do everything better. And for him to come and make that kind of comment was really special. I've worked for Carson City for the past 9 years. I know we have a great crew. I can tell you that your departments put their heart and soul into this. And not only did they put their heart and soul in, everything that, and I had to ask a lot to pull this fair off. There's no doubt about it. We had to set up pens for all the animals, the tents, in order to save money. We got the price down to just under $12,000, which would have been about $16,000 because we did a lot of the labor ourselves. But that came at your city staff jumping up and saying, yes, we can do this. I had 100% support from Public Works. Parks was amazing. and their staff, and they never left us the entire weekend, and they didn't leave us the day after. When you're done with an event like this, one thing everyone wants to do is go home, go home and kind of rest and relax. And I had to come into the office myself Monday morning, but I heard how they were all there first thing Monday morning to break down, and in fact, they broke down extremely fast and were able to get things put away. We had a lot of items borrowed. We had a huge support from the Nevada Junior Livestock Show that let us use all the panels. We had something, but your staff was incredible. They were absolutely phenomenal, and they were out there not only that all weekend. I mean, Scott Fahrenbrook never left us, and he was available by phone all the time. Vern was there. In fact, I got a comment from one of Susan Taylor's staff who said Vern is the perfect fair guy, because he was going around with his balloon hat on, and anyway, he was taking pictures. He was having a great time. The other comments I received are that the park, to have a fair, to have a carnival, to have things set up in a setting that was so gorgeous, people were just absolutely enjoying themselves just walking around there. I think it was one of the best things for Fuji Park. I think it was rediscovered by a lot of people. I really do. I know it was rediscovered by me. I mean, I've been out to Fuji for years, but I haven't been out there recently. And I must say, walking around that park, I thought, we have an amazing park here. The lighting that you all approved through redevelopment that went in, you have got to go out and look at it if you haven't. I walked Supervisor McKenna around just because he spent numerous hours out there at our information booth, and I said, come on, come see what your money paid. And that lighting is, it starts just on the south side of the creek and goes all the way down the path that goes along the creek, and it goes all the way to Vista Grande, and then a little bit on the west side of the grass area. That was very important. If that had been dark, it would not have been good for an event like this. I think what it also shows is you're going to have a much more marketable park as well, and especially if you can keep going with some improvements. We didn't get, people parked everywhere. I think that's a lot of Carson City's comfort level, but thankfully we got very few parking complaints. Costco worked very well with us, and they were a great partner, and they welcomed us from the beginning, and we helped each other out in working on helping to regulate their parking, and they had flat even told me once they close they don't care anyway. So we monitored the best we could, and I think I know that we had parking for their customers. The Fandango, again, kudos to them. The people that rode the shuttle said what a fantastic service. They were very pleased with the Fandango. The Fandango, I hope they know this, they got really good press because they put a tent up for those that were riding the shuttle. I don't know if any of you had a chance to, and they offered water. They said that not only were the Fandango, they also monitored their own parking, so we didn't have to do that because we had a lot of volunteers. A lot of people don't like to work outside that volunteer, so a lot of the outside people we did our own staff. So, but they worked with us again really well, and I know people that I knew spent time at the Fandango too because they were happy to be there. They loved the shuttle, they loved the experience, and they all went and made sure that they did spend some time with Fandango as well. So, like I said, I know we didn't do everything perfect, but I think for a first year, I think it was, I know it awed me. I know it was very incredible. And, I was sitting there thinking, is anybody going to come? And then looking around on Friday and going, oh my gosh, now can we handle it okay? I'm hoping that you'll want me to bring back an action to do this again. I know that you gave $75,000 last year. I know that there was the hope that that would be able to be paid back. While I don't have the financials for you, I can tell you that won't happen. Didn't make that much money. It didn't. Now, that being said, I think the good thing is from what I'm seeing so far in numbers, we didn't spend any more than we had. Now, we got a lot of donations, and I want to remember that we got an additional $10,000 from redevelopment and $10,000 from Douglas County. We had quite a few individual donors like Benson's Feed and Cal Ranch and Meridian Insurance. We had, and I think I'm very impressed with that as well, because a first-year event, everyone's nervous. People are nervous to be vendors. You're nervous to give donation. I mean, you don't want your money to go into a hole that doesn't give you the paybacks on it. I'm hoping now that they've seen that I think what struck me a lot was how I believe Carson City's hungry for a fair. And as I'm looking around and I'm seeing people, and I thought, wow, we really are hungry for a fair. I mean, I think it really does show that Nevada hasn't had a state fair. There hasn't, even though we've got some county fairs going on in other counties, there hasn't been anything, even though this wasn't a large magnitude, it was a greater magnitude than we've seen. So we will continue to have we'll have a debrief meeting when I can, in early September, right around the time of the next, the first meeting of September with the board. I'm going to have Susan Taylor come up. I will have her present to you at that board as we do the final report. And at that time, I'll be able to give you the hardest numbers. And just realize I can't give you really hard attendance numbers. Can't do that without a gate fee and without being able, Fuji Park has many, many entrances, which is one of the reasons we decided early on not to do a gate fee, because you can't secure that park well, and it would be very difficult. That being said, I have to say, I think I myself, which is why you all got ribbons today, you got a blue ribbon and a best to show, because offering this for the community, I'm really glad we didn't do a gate fee. I know I have 4 children myself. When they were younger, there's a lot of those type of things we couldn't do because you're multiplying everything by 6. And I believe that this was such an opportunity for people to come have some fun. There were many free events, and it was I think you did a great service for the community, and I hope you hear that. I know I sent you a couple thank you notes this week. These thank you notes that I sent you, and just so you know, they really are real, because here's the envelopes for them. The kids that sat down and wrote these were exhibitors. And I don't know, when I had kids showing livestock, the last thing we had time to do was probably sit down in the middle of it and write thank you notes. So I was very impressed that they had time to sit and do that, and they felt that it was worthy enough that they should do that and write you a note. So I hope you hear more. I think you will. And again, we didn't do anything perfect. We'll do improvements if you allow us to go forward next time. And I don't have any action today, but I am hoping I get a sense if you would like me to bring action back. This does take a long time to plan. We had, when you did the action last October, we went as fast as we could to get everything together. And we already have issues with the park being booked, different things like that. So I don't mean to put pressure on you, but it does take a long time to plan. I certainly would want to secure our fair manager again if we want to go forward. And so there's no action today, but it would be great to have a sense if we were going to have action on the first meeting in September on what the future of the fair will be. And I think with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laura. We'll start down here. Go this way.
Marina, just in lieu of the $75,000, I think if Nick can drill down as to the proceeds on bars and restaurants during that week of the fair, and the same with lodging properties, the returns, because I do know from our own restaurant the number of people that came in that just made it an occasion to stay. So I think that's an important return on investment that needs to be considered. And from my own personal standpoint, I would like to bring an action forward to continue this event. I know it was a feel-good for the entire community that I've talked to.
Well, Karen stole my thunder there. But I guess my areas of interest would be that we figure out, if possible, the mix of out-of-town people versus locals and what the actual impact was on the local economy, so that we can get an idea of the return on the money that we spent on this. And then also, if it's the pleasure of the board to bring this back as an action item, I'd like to see multiple parking solutions, which you and I already talked about, so I know you're already working on that, so that we don't have to depend on a private enterprise year in and year out.
The thing I remembered most is this was a 150th anniversary event put on by Carson City to celebrate the state. And it was a success, and I think the city met people outside of Carson City's expectations, the governor, et cetera, by doing this. We stepped up as a state capital, and we put on a very, very good family-oriented event. I will tell you that it brought people together. There were people out there that were just born, and there were people out there. One guy had to be in his 90s, could barely walk, but he walked the entire thing. Lots of kids, lots of families, lots of grandparents with their children, with their grandchildren, in a couple of cases, great-grandchildren. So it was a nice community gathering. The problem with using Fuji Park as a fair grounds is its size. It is, to make money, you probably have to have a larger grounds. The great thing about Fuji Park is it is a great park to do things. I would suggest that we talk to the sheriff and let's see if we can have his event that was canceled on Tuesday at Fuji Park. It's a great park for this sort of thing. There are paved areas, there's grass areas, there's dirt areas, and there's a building, there's an arena. A lot can be done out at Fuji Park. I think it will get more use because of this. As to a future fair, I'm torn. I would like to see it done by another group, conventions, chamber, Rotary. I don't care. I don't like the city leading the charge on that. I think it should be a community event put on by the community. But I'm amenable to discussing whether or not the city should do it. I will tell you that it was ancillary value. The fire people work with the sheriff's people, who work with the search and rescue people, who work with the church that was picking up the trash, who worked with, everybody worked together, Parks and Rec. We had a group of people following Marina around because we thought she was going to die of a heart attack. And after the board finishes, I'd like Mr. Kramer to tell us his experiences.
Well, I must tell you, I'm so impressed with what you did, Ms. Works. It was fantastic. And I told you that at the fair, and I went almost every day at different times just to get the feel for it, see what's going on there. I think it was a fabulous event. I think it should be funded through the city every year, and I think we need to look at the 5-year study on Fuji Park and how we can improve that. And whatever you need for next year's event, I think you should bring it forward to the board. And I know you played compliments to a lot of people, but it started with you and with your fair, I believe her first name is Susan, is that correct? It started with you too, and from there you built, and I commend everybody who helped you and worked on that fair, but I think the star goes on your name and her name as well. It was a fantastic event for this city. As I walked around and talked to people, it was amazing that they said, my gosh, where has this been? Why don't we do this every year? We need to do this. How come Carson hasn't done this before? Over and over and over. And I just think you did a fabulous job, and pass that on down to everyone that worked with you, and great job.
Yeah, I think everybody said, and what I would say, I'd just add two little things. One is that, this is kind of an interesting way about how kernels of citizen comments and citizen ideas grow into a big, wonderful event. And to this day, I remember about, putting a museum out at the prison. I remember some folks, I came in, off the golf course, and they said, you got to make a museum out of that prison out there. And that's kind of how Save Our Prison got going. I mean, that's how this organization carried it through the legislature, and that's going to happen. It may not happen overnight because there's a lot of things going on. And I remember Roby Willis coming to all of us and around the community saying, hey, you need to do it, Judge Willis, you need to do a fair. Everybody wants to do that, And I remember coming here, and so it grew, And, you know, you and your staff, Marina, just took over, and I thought that was just, you know, that's how things grow from the ground up, and it was a big deal for our community. And I have to tell you, it was a big deal for the governor, because I know the governor came out, and he wasn't just there to do a photo op. He stuck around, talked to the 4-H folks, looked around the fair, did the whole thing. You know, so he was impressed by it. And I know, you know, that I don't think we had any police activities out there. Nobody's picked up for rowdy conduct or anything like that. You know, we had one tree limb fall, but it fell in the middle of the night, which is all right. Good to fall in the middle of the night if it's going to fall at all. You know, our hats off, so I won't add any more. And I think public comment. Al, did you want to say something on this? You're waiting? Come on.
Thank you, Al Kramer. Yeah, John and I shared the information booth pretty much all the time. I know when I was asked to put down the hours that I'd be available to volunteer, and I put down all the hours I was available to volunteer, I didn't know that was going to be the time I was going to be asked to work. So it stretched out a little bit. And I'm one of those ones that when Monday came and the fair was over, I relaxed. I wasn't out there cleaning up. We did have some areas that were concerns, and parking was one. I thought we dealt with it well, but people being the way they are, that I heard some complaints on that. But we dealt with it well, and I also heard a lot of compliments on that as well. I think we had a lot of people saying, gee, next year I want to be involved. I want to bring stuff to have it on show. I want to volunteer. I didn't have anybody say they wanted to be a vendor, but I certainly had a lot of people in the first two categories. Wanting to know who the judges were, how they could get involved, whether they could help run part of it. Well, geez, that's pretty neat when you get people who want to be associated with you. But a lot of people, a lot of compliments. Whenever someone asked me, are we going to do this next year, I said, absolutely. There you are. Huh?
Thank you, Al, for your donation
That's
of
right.
time, man. All right, anybody other public comment? Anybody else? Said it kind of all, and I know probably we echo everybody's comments. I think we've heard a lot, and I know that, so, okay. Anything else, Marina?
I just want to echo, I did forget to mention, we had absolutely no law enforcement issue. We never had a disorderly conduct. We never had a drunk person. We had nothing. And that was, I think that spoke volumes. And the tree, thank goodness, those of you that don't know, there was a very old tree in the park with a very large branch that fell at 4 a.m. Saturday morning, and it did destroy Panda Kitchen's tent, one of their steamers, and then a picnic table that we had to run to the dump. And I'll tell you what, now again, on that city staff, they were out there by 5 a.m. That branch, this is how big it was, it filled a chipper. They had the thing chipped. They had everything cleaned up. Another vendor there had an extra tent. Panda Kitchen was up and running by noon that day, and we gave them actually a little award for being, they were such good sports, and that could have just taken a vendor out, that they just couldn't even have continued business. Man, they just, they got right to it. They got staff there early, and everyone helped making sure they were up and going. And we were all extremely thankful that that did not happen during the hours of the fair.
On that, I talked to Scott Fahrenbrook after it happened. He assured me that they were out there for at least 3 weeks before doing safety pruning on that particular tree and others. The park was safe. It just, it's probably the oldest tree in Carson City, he told me, and they didn't.
That oldest tree's down on Washington Street. I don't know. But go ahead.
I'm just telling you what Scott told me. But the thing is, maybe it was the oldest tree in that park. I don't know.
Okay.
But cottonwoods, even if they look like they're perfect, they will fall on you at strange times. Luckily, it was about 3 a.m. when it fell, I think. So the park was empty and there was no one there. There was also apparently a bear that walked through the area on Tuesday night, I think. That's one of the search and rescue people told me that. As far as law enforcement goes, there were Explorer Boy Scouts, or whatever they're called, the Sheriff's Explorer Scouts were there walking around in their little black in their black uniforms. Search and rescue had a great turnout. They were there in their bright orange. You couldn't, if there was a problem, if someone felt ill, and we had one lady that was transported because Luckily, we had a search and rescue person right behind her the second that she could no longer walk. EMS was there. It was a great show of what Carson City can do.
Okay. Thank you, Marina. Okay, now let's move to Board of Supervisors, non-action items. Anything we got to do that we haven't covered already? Let's go to Board of Supervisors, future agenda items. Anybody want something? Go.
I would like to get an update on the operations out at Eagle Valley Golf Course. We haven't had one since we renewed their contract.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, any board comments? We have had a lot of comments today. Board, go, Jim.
If we do get the report from Eagle Valley, I think they should be here as well for the presentation. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Then we're gonna, are we ready to, let's see, make sure I don't.
130.
We're gonna be in recess until 1:30 this afternoon. Have your thinking caps on, folks. See you at 1:30.